Here we go, a Wednesday show, ready, locked, and loaded. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform at Mike Gill Show and on YouTube at 973 ESPN. Check us out. Be a part of the show. Subscribe, like. We got you covered till 6 o'clock tonight. Let's dive right into Eagles and Niners. Thought a lot about this game today. I was on McMullen's show this morning, and we got into a lot of conversation about this game that has me kind of ready to talk about this game more. But I need your help. Text board open all day, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. I got a question I want to ask everybody out there. So our poll question today, we'll update the poll throughout the show. Our first look at that poll question will be at 2:45 today. Here's a question I have in the poll today, and I'm going to start off with this one. There's a lot about this game that I'm intrigued by. The question I have for the poll question today, which head coach do you trust more on Sunday? Sirianni, Shanahan. What do you think? You got any predictions for that one today? Josh Henning producing today's show. You out there. You got any predictions on how that one's going to go today? I thought that was we got into a conversation today about head coaches. Harbaugh got fired yesterday, and it kind of spiraled into conversation about coaches.
Right.
So I thought, okay, Sirianni has a Super Bowl. He's been to the playoffs 5 times. Shanahan hasn't won skedaddle. Been to a Super Bowl. Who do you trust more Sunday?
2 Super Bowls, by the way, as head coach.
2 Super Bowls, Shanahan.
Yeah, him and Sirianni, they've both been in 2
He's
Super
also
Bowls.
been to a Super Bowl as a coordinator.
As a coordinator. I wasn't counting that. I was just trying to stick the head coach thing. But, he got there with 2 different quarterbacks. Sirianni got there with 1 quarterback, so there's that factor in as well. You know, both guys have had success with good defensive coordinators that have helped them make postseason runs. Sirianni obviously has less years as a head coach. I got to pull out my stat number, but I believe Shanahan's got 9 years at this point versus Sirianni's 5. So I think it's a very good conversation. There are some interesting.
If I just said to you right now, Shanahan's the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, Sirianni's the head coach of the 49ers, who do you trust more?
I think the gut instinct is to trust the guy with the last name, the more popular last name being Shanahan. I think Kyle has.
So you would pick Shanahan?
Right now, I would. Yes, I would pick Shanahan. Not because I'm anti-Sirianni, but because I do think that I think Shanahan's a better overall, coach. I think Sirianni's a very good CEO coach, but I think Shanahan's a better.
Yeah, they're different. I mean, you get one guy who is, if you want the guy who's the offensive innovator,
I want Shanahan.
You go Shanahan. If you're the guy who's more CEO and has a better resume, quite frankly. I mean, he's won a Super Bowl. He's been to a Super Bowl. Shanahan has lost 2 Super Bowls. Right. He's also a big reason why the Falcons lost the game.
Right, because they stopped running the ball. They kept passing the ball in the second half.
He gets a lot of blame for the Falcons' loss to the Patriots in that Super Bowl.
Maybe a little bit too much because, the Falcons' defense did choke away that lead as well. But I digress. Did you watch Hard Knocks last night?
Oh, I totally forgot about it. You know why? I'm watching The Diplomat. Season 3. It dropped Kerry Russell.
Oh, and Netflix.
Yeah.
I've seen commercials for that.
The new season dropped sometime in the end of 2025, and I didn't know it. I just happened to come across it, and I said, oh, the new season just dropped. So been watching that the last couple of months. Although I did flip on enough to see Trevor Zegras pop in a couple goals. I watched both of the goals. A power play goal. It got a little rowdy at the barn last night. We're going to talk to Kevin Durso at 3:30 today about the atmosphere inside the barn last night for the Fly Guy. So I watched a little Flyers.
I was locked into the whole Flyers game.
Then I went Diplomat. Totally forgot about Hard Knocks.
Yeah, so
don't give it too much away.
I'm not going to, but I was going to say, it's more of a general thing. If you watch all the Hard Knocks episodes, I think the thing that makes Sirianni different than the other coaches is he has great interpersonal relationships and he's a motivator. He's a guy who, he's a rah-rah guy. He's a kind of almost like he's almost got that like college coach, doesn't he, a little bit when he talks to the players in these Hard Knock scenes? It's almost like you see like his interpersonal relationships, how he talks about things. There's the conversation. I don't want to give it away, but there's a conversation with one of the players he has on last night's episode that I thought was very interesting.
Was last night because so the rest of the way it should be all Eagles?
Yes and no. So
well, what else are you covering? The Cowboys are done.
Well, what they do.
Giants are done. Washington's done.
They cover the exit interviews.
All right,
so,
I'm
so
okay.
Next week you're going to see about Matt Eberflus getting fired.
Oh, okay, so I was going to say, so Dallas has Eberflus fired. Washington has both coordinators let go.
So that'll be next week.
And by the way, the Washington thing's going to be interesting because apparently the offensive players were not happy.
They are not happy at all.
Do you just change course and bring them back? I mean,
do you fire Dan Quinn and make Kingsbury the head coach?
Listen, I will say this. Dan Quinn is a great guy to kind of change the culture, but he's the guy you got to say we got to let you go. He's the guy. Now,
Brett
listen.
Brown?
Yeah, he's got a little Brett Brown in him where great culture guy. I think he's a great guy to kind of new ownership, kind of try to change the culture of that. And I think he kind of got them to the NFC Championship game. So you could say he did do that, but I don't think he's a great head coach. He might be a great human being, and he might be the guy, like, for the defensive coordinator in Dallas. I think he did a great job. But you don't want him to be the head coach of the team that's trying to go to the next level.
Right.
If I'm Washington, after this season, I might say, listen, you did everything you could. You kept it together. John Harbaugh's available. Sorry.
Right.
Like, if I'm any team that had a season like Washington did and John Harbaugh's available, I have to try to take that shot and say, sorry, we won 4 games. What do you want me to do?
I will say, I was listening to Rich Eisen before the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. He brought up the question of, is John Harbaugh the kind of guy who, if there's a current GM in place, does he walk in and say, I don't really like that GM. If you want me, you got to get somebody that I like. Do you think Harbaugh's that kind of guy?
No, he doesn't seem like that kind of guy, but I don't know. He seems like a pretty level-headed guy, but, I mean, he's at the stage of his career. I think that he can say whatever the heck he wants. If,
right.
You want me, this is how it's going to go down.
12 postseason appearances in 18 years is a heck of a record.
Now, some people talked about the Giants being interested in him and whether that, does he want to go to a place that's a pressure cooker like the Giants? He's 63 years old, I think.
Yeah,
does he want to just go to Arizona, put his feet up, and just do something like that? Listen. Right now,
I don't know if he wants to do that necessarily. He seems still pretty competitive.
No, I'm just saying, like, he has a wide range of places he could go.
Did you see his?
Does he want to go to Vegas?
Like, did you see his statement that he came out
I did.
with? Like, that doesn't sound like a guy who's like, I'm good. Like, that sounds like a guy who's like, the fire's still burned.
He actually said he anticipated being there for multiple more years. Like, he had no intention of leaving. I think he was a guy that said, hey, if I'm the coach of the Baltimore Ravens for 25 years, that's who I am.
Right.
He was cool with that. But he's got a wide variety of places that he can go right now. And if I'm right now, seriously, I'm not joking about this. I think Harbaugh's like when Vrabel was available last year. I would have done whatever I had to do. If I needed a coach, I would have got Vrabel. Vrabel, great coach, but culture builder.
Culture, yeah. Big culture.
Similar to what, like, that's why I view Sirianni as that kind of guy. Like, Vrabel, he's a defensive coordinator. He's not some offensive guru.
Nope.
So he's more of the culture builder. But if I'm the Jets, I am firing, well, I'm probably firing Glenn anyway.
Well, you saw the report from Schefter last night, right? That they're one of the teams that have already called Harbaugh's agent is a team that has a current head coach employed.
Let me tell you right now, if I'm Miami, Mike McDaniel, sorry, McDonald's the other guy in Seattle. Mike McDaniel, thank you for your service. We're hiring Harbaugh. I make a call to Harbaugh if I'm Miami. If I'm the Jets, I 100% do. If I'm Cincinnati, I fire Zach Taylor and I call John Harbaugh. Cleveland. If I'm Cleveland, I just fired my coach. The first call I'm making is, John Harbaugh, do you want to come to Cleveland and fix this mess? If I'm Tennessee, that's the guy I'm calling, and I'm assuming they already have?
That's the report, yeah, that all the teams that have openings have already called.
If I'm Indianapolis, Shane Steichen, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Raiders have already called. They've all called.
Vegas, 1,000%. Quite frankly, I mean, Dallas. If I'm Dallas, I might now. Schottenheimer, I think, exceeded some expectations. I think Schottenheimer, on Hard Knocks, Schottenheimer did impress me a little bit.
If you thought he was pressed, you should see the last night's episode. I want to give it away.
And I'm not saying I think he's great, but I think, you were like, they hired Schottenheimer? Like when they fired
Mike McCarthy.
McCarthy, it's like they went to the offensive coordinator. But guess what? You went 7-9. I'm bringing in John Harbaugh. Your organization has been an utter laughingstock for 35 years. I'm bringing in John Harbaugh. Washington, 100%. I'm firing Dan Quinn immediately. I'm making sure he wants to come here first before I fire Quinn, although if I'm Washington, I got to look at myself in the mirror and say Quinn's just not the guy. I mean, it's a good story. He got you the NFC Championship game, but if you're Washington, you're smarter than that. You know Dan Quinn's a buffoon. He's not the guy. Look how conservative he is. The Giants, 1,000% Harbaugh. If I'm Detroit, I think I'm making a move from Dan Campbell and going to Harbaugh.
But back to the original point, there is a bit of that synergy between Harbaugh and Sirianni. They're CEO coaches, they're culture builders, they're guys that, they have interpersonal relationships with people in the building. They're not out there calling
Harbaugh he was in Philadelphia. He was a special teams coach. He's not an offensive guy. He's not a defensive guy. He's no offensive innovator guru. He's no defensive, he doesn't have some scheme. He's John Harbaugh, culture setter. And again, I just went through the AFC teams. On the NFC side, if I'm Detroit, I probably move on from Dan Campbell in favor of Harbaugh. And
that's hard.
Not for me. Hey, Dan Campbell, you've done a great job of changing the organization around, but we need a real coach now. You were fun. You put us on the map. We need a real coach. If I am, quite frankly, any of the teams in the NFC South except for the Saints, and I hate to say even Carolina, although Canales got them to the playoff, they won 8 games, I have to consider Harbaugh. Any one of those teams, Tampa Bay, Atlanta.
Tampa Bay, definitely. I think Todd Bowles, he's expired milk at this point.
And Arizona, 100%. Arizona, it's a no-brainer for them.
My only thing with Arizona is I don't know if Harbaugh wants to deal with that mess.
Jeff in Ocean City, do you think the argument that seeding should be based on record will come up again in the offseason? No, I've never been on that side of the coin.
No.
You win the division, you get the 4 seed.
You can't devalue the division.
No, and it's because in the NFL, schedules are not equal. You don't play the same schedule. So I have no problem with Carolina being the 4 seed and getting the home game. I have no problem with Pittsburgh being the home team and playing.
Because if you're the better team, you'll go there and win anyway.
You'll go on the road and you'll win that game against a team that, but the schedules are different. Carolina won 8 games and played a pretty difficult schedule, by the way. You look at what Carolina went through this year.
Carolina very much overachieved.
They played the West this year. So they played the Niners. They played the Rams. They played the Seahawks. Plus, their other games that they played, the Packers. They played the Bills. They played Dallas was okay. They played the Patriots. They played Jacksonville. They played a pretty tough schedule.
Yeah. And they survived. So they deserve credit.
Well, they survived. They won 8 games.
Still surviving. For a team that had 0 expectations to win the division.
So our question is a lot about coaches today. It's Sirianni speaking today, so it has to do with the fact that he's talking today. By the way, we'll play that for you a little bit later on tonight on the show. The poll question today, and you guys can text in 609-403-0973. Which head coach do you trust more on Sunday, Sirianni or Shanahan? Where do you think the listeners will go?
I do think there's a contingent of people who just, no matter what Sirianni does, Sirianni could bring about world peace, find a cure for cancer, save their cat from a tree, and they still hate him.
It's amazing. Can you name another Super Bowl winning head coach that has less cachet with the fan base? That they were like, he won the Super Bowl, but the only other guy that I can think of is when Dallas won back in the 90s with Barry Switzer, where people thought like they were all Jimmy Johnson's guys,
right?
And that Switzer just kind of walked into that situation. But Sirianni didn't walk into a championship team. That team stunk when he got here.
Yeah, they were coming off of a bad season, and they had to rebuild everything from the ground up, basically.
609-403-0973. Text in your thoughts. Which head coach do you trust more on Sunday? Kyle Shanahan or Nick Sirianni? 609-403-0973. Because a couple things on this one, all right? Let's take a look at some of the differences here. You've got in this game, by the way, Philadelphia is favored by 4.5. That number's jumped up. I mean, it was started, I think, at 2.5 or 3. It's up to 4.5. Third playoff meeting between the two teams. 1996, San Francisco won that game 14-0. I remember that vividly.
Was that Rodney Pete?
No, not 96. Was it Rodney Pete? Maybe it was Rodney Pete. Now that I'm thinking of it, 96. I would have been in college, so I don't think it was Rodney Pete. 96 was before McNabb. Huh.
It was Ty Detmer who started that game, and Mark Rippon came in relief.
For the Eagles?
1996.
Wow. I don't remember.
Lost.
I said I remember that game vividly. I don't remember the quarterbacks. I remember them just getting stifled.
14-0.
14-0 was the score. I do remember that. They also played in the 2022 NFC Championship game. The Eagles won that game 31-7. Brock Purdy torn UCL in his throwing elbow in the first quarter of that game, and he left. He then later had to come back, but he couldn't throw the ball the rest of the day. Sparked a lot of conversation. They then played in the next season in 2023, to which the Niners lambasted Philadelphia and kind of started the downward spiral. Now, this is the third meeting between Purdy and Hurts. As we talked about, they played in the NFC Championship game. They also met one time in college. Hurts was at Oklahoma. Purdy was at Iowa State. Final score, 42-41. Purdy had 6 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown in that game. And Hurts had 5 passing touchdowns and a rushing TD. Think about that.
That was the game that, for many people, launched Hurts into the Heisman Trophy finalist situation.
Well, he got outdueled by Purdy that day, but won the game.
But won the game, right.
Barkley and McCaffrey rank number 2 and number 4, respectively, in yards per scrimmage in NFL postseason history. Barkley's number 2, McCaffrey's number 4.
And I would argue that I know he won't win it, but McCaffrey should be NFL MVP this year.
Wow.
I think that with all the injuries the 49ers have sustained this year, that offense survived because of him.
Okay. This is where the Eagles are interesting. They are the worst team on 3-and-out percentage.
This year, yeah.
They go 3-and-out almost 30% of their offensive drives, which is awful. But this is where they're so bizarre. They are the NFL's best team in the red zone. They produce a touchdown in the red zone 71% of the time. Meanwhile, the San Francisco 49ers are 65%. So do you make an argument to say, when you're in the red zone, the most important area of the field, Patullo's been better than Shanahan? Are you surprised by that? Because I am.
I'm surprised by it, but I would also say that how much of it is Patullo and how much of it is the Eagles' personnel. Like, if you gave Kyle Shanahan the Eagles...
He does come up with some creative little plays inside, especially the 5. Those little tight end pitches to...
that's credited to Scott Loeffler, the quarterback coach.
Whoever.
Apparently. So apparently that's maybe a staff creation than an individual. But I would just ask you, if you gave Kyle Shanahan the Eagles' personnel...
Oh, they scored 35 points a game.
Right.
Probably. San Francisco uses pre-snap motion 70% of the time, third best in the league. The Eagles use pre-snap motion 49% of the time. That is the 4th lowest percentage in the NFL.
Yep.
Now, you're taking a look at these two teams. The Niners scored 3 points in the regular season finale against the Seahawks. It's the fewest points they have scored in any game, period, since 2017 in Week 1 against the Panthers. That was Kyle Shanahan's first game as the head coach. They're 173 total yards. It's the second fewest yards in any game under Kyle Shanahan, except for the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago. So they are coming off that game where they really got stifled. Number 2, they are last in the NFL in sacks. And they are the worst team in the league in terms of pressure percentage. Yeah. They don't get pressure on the quarterback, and they don't sack the quarterback. In fact, you remember your old friend out there, Bryce Huff?
Yes.
That's their best pass rusher.
And it's kind of sad because this is a 49ers team that built very heavily in the draft through the defensive line, and half their starting defensive line has been injured this year.
Yeah, so you have to wonder, if they can't get pressure and they can't get to the quarterback, do the Eagles, A, elect to run the ball at them, or B, say you can't get us? Because one of the big storylines in this game, it's what Seattle excelled in last week. They ran the ball to the edges and beat them up because their edge rushers are small. They're not good run stuffers. Bryce Huff, it's one of the reasons why he couldn't get on the field here. They pinned those guys, and what they did a lot of is the Seattle Seahawks, if you watch that game on Saturday night, you will see they use their wide receivers a lot in the blocking scheme in the run game. They did a lot of stuff to the outside. They used the wide receivers to block, and they just kept pitching them to death out there. Something you don't see Philadelphia do a whole heck of a lot.
And that's what Chris Long was saying on the Green Lake podcast, talking about the Eagles must run in order to win the game.
You got to be able to run the ball in San Francisco. San Francisco's defense, you watch that Seattle game, you can cut it back on these guys. You can get them running sideline to sideline. That's something that Patullo should be looking at this week when he dials up his run plan. The run game is going to be huge. I think this is a bad defense, but it's really hard if you can't run the football.
Hey, I didn't hear that, Blake, but it looks like we're on the same page here because watching that game Saturday night, that's what I take away from that game, is that Seattle ran the ball. And they're a team that, their run game isn't like some sophisticated, great running attack, Seattle.
No, they've actually struggled at times to run the ball this year, has Seattle. Kenneth Walker III was a disappointment for a lot of people's fantasy teams.
So, and I don't know that Philadelphia's run game's any better, by the way.
But the point is that
if they've been doing this year.
If San Francisco gave you a blueprint, you should follow it, right?
If Seattle's offense was able to run to the outside and hit the corners, Seattle averages 123 yards rushing per game, which is slightly better than Philadelphia's, which is at 116. But they're in the same ballpark. You should be able to follow some of the things. Now, big question will be, Lane Johnson, supposedly back at practice today. We'll find out with Geoff Mosher football at 4. Because there's some conflicting thoughts here on whether he will play, won't play. He's going to test his foot out, but he should be back at practice today. 609-403-0973. JW in Ocean City says, I understand the premise of the question, but you also have to look at what each coach has to work with at the specific moment. I trust Sirianni and Fangio with a healthy team over Shanahan with a banged-up team. It's not always the X's and O's. Sometimes it's the Jimmies and the Joes. I love that comment, and I agree, but you can make an argument that you trust Sirianni and Fangio with a healthy team over Shanahan with a banged-up team, but one of the reasons why Philadelphia has been healthy, they didn't play guys last week. Yes. And Shanahan, they were going for the number 1 seed. They played their guys, and they lost a handful of guys in that game. One of them, Bethune, the linebacker, is out for the season now.
Yeah, so one of the interesting differences between these teams is that in the Eagles 2022 team, every opening day starter played in that Super Bowl. 21 out of 22 starters played in the Super Bowl last year. And then the anticipation is 21 out of 22 starters will most likely be ready for the postseason this year. Kyle Shanahan, his starters who usually play in the preseason, they have a top 10 in injury rate every year under Kyle Shanahan since 2017, except for 2023. So Shanahan's teams are almost always injured, while the Eagles teams are almost always healthy.
Eagles have been one of the healthiest teams in the league the last couple of years, and listen, it's one of the reasons why they valued not playing the game on Sunday. The 49ers did play guys, and some of their key guys did get hurt. I say key guys. They're down to like their 5th and 6th linebacker. Their starting linebacker got hurt in the game.
Calling Kazir White.
Unbelievable. So there's some of the numbers to consider. Poll question, we'll update it. By the way, some news on the Sixers. They have upgraded Joel Embiid, Kelly Oubre, and Trendon Watford from questionable to probable for tonight's game. So it looks like they will be at complete full strength for the first time
Ever?
all season long. Meanwhile, the Wizards have ruled out C.J. McCollum, Chris Middleton, Keyshawn George, Will Riley, Cam Whitmore, Sharif Cooper, Jameer Watkins. They'll be down 7 guys, the Wizards.
Oh, great. So it's big the Nuggets game the other night.
Exactly. But this time, I think you can take it to the bank that the Sixers will not let their guard down. And if that spread is 10 or more, you probably feel pretty good. I think Sixers probably win by 20 plus tonight. They're getting everybody back for the first time. This will be the first time all year that they will have a full roster to their disposal, it looks like. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and watch the show live on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel and on the Twitter X feed at Mike Gill Show. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City joins me next. 2:32, Sports Bash Live. Don't forget coverage of the Eagles and Niners Sunday, 3 o'clock. The kickoff at 4:30. Merrill Reese, Mike Quick on the call. Your exclusive home down the shore for Eagles playoff football is 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, Sixers tonight. They take on the Wizards. You can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tip-off at 7. Looks like Kelly Oubre, Trent Watford will be back for the Sixers tonight. Mike McGarry's here from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com, and he's brought to you by Broadley's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your trusted source serving South Jersey since 1911, keeping your home comfort game day ready this season. It's Eagles and the Niners. Mike, if I were to ask you, which head coach do you trust more, Shanahan, Sirianni? What say you?
Boy, interesting, interesting, because I think Shanahan is basically regarded as more of the X and O guy, a real innovator, but Sirianni has won a Super Bowl, so it's hard not to trust the guy who's won the game's ultimate prize, even though he might not be a better X and O coach than the guy on the opposite sideline.
Yeah, I think everybody, when they think of head coach in terms of offense of innovator, Kyle Shanahan's one of those guys you want calling plays for you, but he has never been able to win that big game. And some would say he's part of the reason why some of his teams have come up short in the big moments, whereas Sirianni, the moment didn't seem too big for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Shanahan was the offensive coordinator on a team that was up 28-3 in the Super Bowl and couldn't get home. So, and obviously he's been there with the 49ers and come up short too. And again, it almost goes back to Mike, that argument, like, what does Sirianni do? And none of us can actually kind of answer that question right definitively. Well, he does A, B, C, and D, but what he does do is win, and he's won the game's highest prize. He's got them in the playoffs again, number 3 seed. So again, hard to not to trust the guy more who's won the Super Bowl. I love winning. I'll take the guy who won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think Sirianni is a very polarizing figure, no question about it. Those are the matchups there. Purdy, Hurts. Which guy do you want under center for your team on Sunday?
Boy, again, a tough question, because both guys have strengths and weaknesses, right? We've seen it happen. But again, I've got to take Hurts because of the way he has played in Super Bowl. He's a Super Bowl MVP. How do you not take the Super Bowl MVP? I mean, I would be a fraud, Mike, if I didn't take Jalen Hurts, because I think Eli Manning should be in the Hall of Fame because he's a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. So how do I trust a quarterback who has never won a Super Bowl, who's never won a Super Bowl MVP, over a guy who's done that? So just like with Sirianni, give me Hurts.
All right, you need someone to run the game out. Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey.
Boy, now we're getting tough here, right? Now we're getting tough. I got to take McCaffrey. I know Barkley had the great year last year, but I just think overall body of work, boy, I would have to take Christian McCaffrey in that situation. I just think he's a little bit more dynamic. Hey, you're talking about what? 2 of the top 5 running backs in football, maybe the top 2 running backs in football. You throw Jonathan Taylor in there from Salem, New Jersey, a guy like that, but slight edge to Christian McCaffrey.
Well, it shows you, head coach, you got a guy who's won against a guy who hasn't, the big game anyway, but Shanahan has had a lot of success, just hasn't won the big game. You got Hurts and Purdy. Hurts is a very polarizing discussion. You got Barkley and Christian McCaffrey. But after that, the Eagles have the wide receiver check marks. They have the offensive line check marks, you would think anyway, even though the Eagles' offensive line, Trent Williams did not practice today. Ricky Pearsall did not practice today. So you wonder who, other than, of course, they got Kittle as well, but, man, McCaffrey and Kittle with their outside receivers, and then Vic Fangio's defense, you would think that this feels like a pretty good matchup for the Eagles with those caveats that I just threw out there.
Yeah, I'll throw 2 more things at you right there. I think the physicality of the game that they played last Saturday against Seattle, to me, Mike, it reminds me of Minnesota-Detroit last year when they played that game to decide the NFC North. And both teams, it was a physical game, and the Vikings lost that game. And then they came out the next week and lost in the playoffs just because the physicality of the game. And Aikman mentioned it during the broadcast that he thought the 49ers were going to have a tough time playing next week just because of how beat up they got in that game against Seattle. So that's one thing. But the flip side of that is, and I know people look at the 49ers and they say, well, they're skill guys. Yeah, they got McCaffrey, they got Kittle, but their wide receivers don't impress me, and Purdy can be hit and miss. But before last Saturday, the hottest offense in the NFL was the 49ers. They were absolutely rolling, scoring 40 points a game. So, yeah, I understand there's a tendency that people look at those wide receivers and say the 49ers are banged up. But, boy, back in time, 2 weeks, and you might not have wanted to see the 49ers walking into Lincoln Financial Field with the way their offense was performing in the month of December.
Well, obviously, the Niners banged up a little bit. The Eagles at full strength. That was a decision that was talked about a lot, obviously, Monday. And you just talked about it. The fact that the Niners had to play that game on Sunday night, and they lost a starting linebacker. They've already are out Fred Warner. They're down to like their fifth and sixth linebackers. And then we talked about this. Their pass rush, Mike, it's one of the worst pass rushes in the history of football. They only had 20 sacks all season long. They're led by Bryce Huff. This is a game where, Philly should be able to at least have time to throw the ball.
Yeah, except the question, Mike, is the Philly offense going to be able to take advantage of the 49ers defense? Or is the malaise that has sort of hung over the Phillies offense all season long, is that going to hold them back and catch up with them next weekend? I agree with you. If you looked at a team for the Eagles to play, obviously I would have rather played Green Bay. Love's coming off an injury. There's no Micah Parsons, right? But if you had to pick one of those three teams from the West to come to Lincoln Financial Field, you probably would have picked the 49ers exactly for the reasons that you said. But still, I worry a little bit because we go back to the original, the start of our discussion. Kyle Shanahan, good coach, and the way that offense was playing, I don't care who was out there. The 49ers were humming through all of December. Can they get it back in a week? We'll see.
All right, Mike McGarry for the President of Atlantic City. I'm going to flip over to little Phil's. What is happening with JT Realmuto, and how do you see this playing out?
Boy, I from what I understand, both sides have kind of dug in here, and I think JT wants a certain money number, and a certain amount of years. And obviously, because they haven't come to a decision yet, the Phillies, probably unwilling to give to him. It'll be interesting to see if either side breaks. And the thing that concerns me, Mike, is at some point, the Phillies are going to have to make a decision here as we get closer to spring training. Are they going to have to go out and get another catcher? I believe they're going to have to go out and get another catcher. If they choose not to sign JT, I don't think you can go through the season with just Marchand and the chief vibes officer. I need another catcher in there to sort of be, Mike, I'll tell you what. I'm okay with starting Marchand. I think defensively he's excellent. We don't really know what type of hitter he is yet, but his arm and catching skills, defensive skills, I think are excellent. But I still want a veteran in there and not just rely on stubs if Marchand gets hurt. And Marchand's history is he says he gets hurt. And when do the Phillies make that decision where they say, we can't wait on JT anymore. We can't wait for JT to come back to us. We have to go out and move on from JT. So, as each day it goes forward, I begin to get a little bit more and more concerned that JT is not going to be back with the Phillies next year. Again, no reporting on that.
Right.
I'm just looking at the calendar and when spring training starts and saying, this situation has got to, the Phillies got to make a move here one way or the other. So
if I was to ask you right now, is JT at pitchers and catchers?
Boy, I'm still going to say yes. Okay. I think JT will be there. I think they're going to come to some sort of agreement here. It just seems to me that they're kind of gearing up with this core to sort of take one last run at it. And, I would think that they would come to some sort of agreement. The fact that he hasn't gone anywhere else yet, obviously, is key. And, who is the other question, Mike, to ask is, let's say JT wants whatever, $15, $16 million a year. Who's the other ball club out there that's going to pay $15, $16 million for a catcher?
Nobody. And that's why, JT
exactly.
has to come to terms with, hey, you went out, the market's not there for you. That's not the Phillies' fault.
Right. Exactly. And it's not the Phillies' fault, but at some point the Phillies have to decide, well, JT's not, coming back to us. We have to make another decision to do what's best for the Philadelphia Phillies here. But again, I think they will come together because, like you just said, who's paying $15 million for a catcher out there? JT's 34, 35 years old.
No.
Defensively, he's still solid. Offensively, okay at best. Again, it would seem to me like if he wants to get paid, the place where he can get the most money is probably still Philadelphia.
Well, that being said, I guess I would ask this question. Do you look at JT and say, you know what? We have to do something to change the lineup. Bringing him back keeps us the same. Maybe we drop off offensively at catcher. Maybe not. I mean, he's starting to decline as a catcher. But we take the money we offered him, see if we can move Bohm or Stott, and that gives us some more money, and go get one of these guys, a Bregman, Bichette. Their name has been connected to Bichette now, and obviously he would be a big upgrade in the middle of the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, look, Mike, I love Bo Bichette. I think he is exactly what the Philadelphia Phillies need. But I think signing him there's a lot of domino moves, right? You mentioned it. They'd have to free up a spot in the infield. They'd probably have to move on from JT. They'd probably have to eventually settle the Nick Castellanos situation. If you move on from JT and Castellanos and Taijuan Walker after this season, you're freeing up about, $50 million as of next season. So you can sign Bichette this year and say, okay, it puts us in payroll hell for this year, but next year with those other contracts coming off the books, we're going to be all right. So I love Bichette. I just wonder, do you have enough time to do, it's not as easy as just, when they signed Bryce Harper in March, in 2019, okay, Bryce Harper came here, he played right field. You signed Bichette, you got to move Stott, you got to probably trade Bohm, there's other moves there that I don't know if you have the time to sort of make. And two, I think this is all related. The Bregman, Bichette market, it's all tied together. And I don't know when that market is going to break. Like, why would Bichette make a decision now before he sees what a guy like Bregman gets? And Bregman's situation might not be settled until the middle of March. So, again, that's kind of how I see that shaking out. Is there enough? It's not as simple as just signing him. Is there time for the other dominoes to fall?
Well, baseball needs to fix this mess. You can't have guys without jobs in March still waiting to sign. I mean, it's ridiculous. But it is what it is right now. JT Realmuto unsigned. And what if Ranger Suárez lands with your Mets, Mike? Yeah,
I mean, you hear now that the Mets are a good bet to either get Ranger Suárez or Framber Valdez of the Houston Astros. The Mets need a starting pitcher. The Mets need to sign a flashy free agent to sort of restore faith. A lot of the fans are shaken because of the departure of Edwin Diaz, the departure of Alonso, the departure of Brandon Nimmo, the departure of Jeff McNeil. People are kind of looking at the Mets saying, what are we doing here? So I would expect the Mets to make a move. Again, if Ranger goes to New York, I know it would be tough for Phillies fans to see, Ranger pitching for the Mets, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I would almost rather have Valdez. I think Rangers' past history is injury history. Making an investment like that in a starting pitcher, there's a reason why the Phillies are letting Ranger Suárez walk, and they know him better than anybody.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. That would be pretty big. Can you imagine a September game Phillies, Mets, Ranger Suárez on the mound. Mets already have some pretty good young pitchers that gave the Phillies some problems last year, but Mets haven't done a lot of additions. This only a lot of subtraction, so we'll see as this calendar flips to 2026. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is back on Friday. Thanks, Mike.
All right, we'll see you down the road, Michael. Thank you.
All right, there's Mike, and of course, he is brought to you by Broadleaf's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. When we come back, our first look at today's poll question, we ask you, which head coach, Sirianni or Shanahan, do you trust more on Sunday? We'll open up the results for the first time coming up next. All right, 2:53. Let's check in on today's poll question at Mike Gill Show. Vote, vote, vote. Which head coach do you trust more on Sunday? Right now, split 50-50. Right down the middle, Sirianni and Shanahan. Which head coach do you trust more on Sunday? It's 50-50, Sirianni, Shanahan. Let us know on the text board, 609-403-0973. Early stages. This is early voting, right? This is first hour. Just put the poll question up. So plenty of time for you guys to continue to vote. 2 hours left to go at Mike Gill Show. Which head coach do you trust more on Sunday?
Yeah, only 20% of precincts reporting right now.
Yeah, Salem County only.
Yeah, exactly. They're always efficient.
Yeah, I think we have narrowed down that Salem County has the smallest population. So the 2 o'clock hour is the Salem County hour. 3 o'clock hour is the Cape May County hour. 4 o'clock hour, we've got the Burlington, Camden, Gloucester areas. And then the 5 o'clock hour, it's Atlantic and Ocean.
Atlantic City, yeah.
And then, we always have Delaware, Maryland, all the way down to Ocean
I
City.
got to put Delaware with Salem, They're kind of the same
Yeah,
area.
probably. I was on the Delaware Memorial Bridge the other day and was listening to you guys.
Yeah?
Loud and clear, yep.
Like that.
All right, so 50-50 is the voting. Sirianni or Shanahan, which head coach do you trust more? 609-403-0973. Let us know. When we come back, it's an early Nuggets today. Knicks Nuggets at 3 o'clock on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Quick text, BK from Virginia says, I'm going to take the coach that said, call it. Just bleep and call it. I like that one, BK. All right, keep voting. The Nuggets are next here on the Sports Bash. All right, 3 o'clock, hour 2 of the show. We are just getting rolling this hour. Knicks Nuggets on the way. Early edition of the Nuggets. Kevin Durso covers the Flyers, was in the barn last night for 97.3 ESPN.com. Trevor Zegras with a couple of goals, picked up the phone, told the Anaheim Ducks what was up. You had a lot of FCC violations during the broadcast last night to one Cutter Gauthier. It was a fun atmosphere last night for the Fly Guys. They win over Anaheim. But right now, it's time for another edition of Knicks Nuggets. Nick Earnshaw is back with an early edition. It's Q Myers joins us at 4:30 today, as he generally does on Wednesdays. But let's bring in Earnshaw now for today's edition of Knicks Nuggets on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Nuggets, what's up, man?
What's going on? I'll tell you what, the barn was rocking last night. That was just a joy to watch the Philadelphia Flyers. The way they handled business against the Ducks and Cutter Gauthier. Gauthier gets the early goal in the beginning of the game. So you're like, oh, man, here we go. But then Zegras, the former Duck himself, right back with 2. And that second one, the sequence from Tippett to Zegras, it was unbelievable. There's something brewing at the Xfinity Mobile Arena, it feels like, Mike, doesn't there?
Well, listen, you had that atmosphere last night. Felt like a playoff game. That was unbelievable. Just, you got Gauthier on the other team, and, obviously you're not going to get that every single night of the week.
No, and there was a lot of FCC violations, like you mentioned. They were chanting something at Gauthier. Obviously, Zegras post-game. I mean, you got to get fired up if you're a Flyers fan right now because, they're a joy to watch. It's like very similar to the Sixers. Just enjoy it right now. The Flyers have not been a good team for a while, so enjoy the ride while they're hot at the moment and see where it takes you right now. I know Danny Briere said they're still focused on the future and it may not impact the way they handle the trade deadline. But, enjoy it.
I'm glad you brought that up. I heard him say this. Now, if you're on the current team, how do you feel if you hear the guy in charge basically say, don't care what this team does, doesn't matter about this team. It's about future teams. But you're on this team, and you're playing well. You haven't been to the playoffs in 5 years, and you're hearing him say, it's not about this team. Don't care. I think that's a bad message.
Yeah, I don't love that. I mean, I understand where Briere's coming from.
I understand where he's coming from, but for him to say it is a bad message.
Yeah, it might not have been the best thing to phrase it that way to the media. That's all. Because I understand where he's coming from, and I tend to agree with him for the most part. This year, you're just like, hey, we get to the postseason, great, awesome, but, maybe not send that message to the players who are playing their tails off, playing really well, and are at the top of the standings right now. Not a great message.
Absolutely.
I will
Absolutely. Say. When I heard him say that, when he said it in the past, it's like, okay, this is the plan. Yeah. We all get it where this team is. Now, do we have any ideas that this team is going to win a Stanley Cup this year? I would say absolutely not. However, for a team that hasn't been to the playoffs in 5 years and has basically given the fan base nothing to get excited about, to come out and say to this group, who right now, by the way, is third in the Metro, 4 points out of first, and you're saying, don't care how well you play, it's not about you, it's about future yous. I didn't think that's a good message. That's all.
No, I understand where you're coming from. To say that to the media, to put that out there in the public sphere, yes. Internally, we don't really care about this team going and making a run this year. We want to build for the future and have sustained success. I understand that. However, you don't come out and say that when your team's like on fire at the moment, So you don't probably say that. Keep that to yourself. Phrase it maybe in a different light, different manner. That's all.
I agree. Well, yeah, I agree.
All right.
I was just a little turned off by that. That's all.
I hear you. I'm sure a couple players were too.
Selfishly, I would like a little playoff hockey round. Can I
too.
get one?
I would love to have some playoff hockey around here. Just playoffs in general, playoff basketball, playoff hockey, be a lot of fun around that time.
Well, I've seen playoff basketball in the last 5 years. I haven't seen a playoff hockey run really going all the way back to 2010 was the last time that the Flyers gave you a run. The Sixers have at least been to the playoffs. I know they didn't get there last year, but they have been to the playoffs every year from 2018 up until last year. The Flyers, no such luck.
Imagine a playoff double dip. That would be awesome.
Last time that happened was the bubble, 2020.
Playoff double dip would be exciting. All right. let's move along. Let's get into these Nuggets. I know you put out the poll question today. Which head coach do you trust more on Sunday? And I can understand, right now I think it's around 50-50. Kyle Shanahan to Nick Sirianni. I'm a little stunned it's that close. I understand Sirianni's been frustrating this year. He has. And we've criticized him a ton on this show and a ton on this segment because it has been well warranted with the stubbornness of Kevin Patullo and the way the offense has been anemic throughout the entire season. I understand why you'd be frustrated with Sirianni. However, the guy's a Super Bowl champion. He's been to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. And you're not going to give that guy a little bit of the benefit of the doubt heading into the postseason. Now, Kyle Shanahan has been to a couple Super Bowls, has not won a Super Bowl. But Sirianni's had playoff success in the recent history here. So if you are posing this question, you're answering it. I think you got to go with Nick Sirianni at this point. I think you just have to. And, I know he's taking a lot of heat for the criticism in the final game. I understand that. But I think you got to go Nick Sirianni because he's coming off of the Super Bowl last season. He's had sustained success. He's won a lot of games. He's been really good on the road as a head coach. He's been really good when it comes to big games. They find ways to win. I think it's got to be Sirianni at this point.
Hey, listen, if somebody said they would rather Shanahan, I have no problem with that based on the offensive talent that you have on this team and what Shanahan's known for. So I think the personnel of the Eagles offense would make you intrigued by that. Now, if you're just looking at resume, you would say Sirianni's won a Super Bowl. Shanahan's 0-2 in Super Bowls. And if you want to go to his time in Atlanta as the coordinator, he got a lot of blame for that team coughing up that game. So I like the resume, the culture, and the CEO head coach more than I like the offensive guru. To me, the offensive guru, it's hard to be consistent with the offensive guru for 4 straight weeks, right?
Yes.
If you're a guy who just relies on offense strictly, it's hard to rely on your offense being at its best in the playoffs 4 weeks in a row. And Shanahan, to me, now, Robert Saleh is a very good defensive coordinator. They just don't have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball right now. So if I'm picking the overall coach, I'll go with Sirianni. But I can understand people who really like the offensive innovator guru style of coach. That's just not for me. I like winning games. I don't need to be entertained.
I agree. Listen, the offense has been neat. However, they've found ways to win games, which is great, partly because of the defense. I love an innovator as the offensive coordinator. There's a difference between a coordinator and a head coach. I think a lot of people think you could just take a coordinator and make him a great head coach. That necessarily is not always the case, okay? It's good to have a guy who can manage personnel, manage a locker room. That is good. Everyone asks, what does the CEO head coach do? They instill the culture. And this is what I want to bring up with nugget number 2. Nugget number 1.
Hold on there. You got a bad connection yet again. You're all messed up there. You got to do something about your connection. These nuggets are getting all burnt, man. I'm getting some burnt nuggets with the Nuggets today. Yeah, I listen. I prefer the CEO style of coach. I know a lot of people, when they think of a head coach, they always think of this offensive play caller. I don't need my coach to be an offensive play caller. I want my coach to manage the game, manage the personalities, set the culture, make sure that everybody plays hard. You never talk about an Eagles team quitting, not trying, not showing up. Those things don't happen with this team. The players on this team have bought into the coach. Now, what I do think that Sirianni can be criticized for is, okay, you chose Kevin Patullo. That's on you. Patullo is not, right now, a qualified guy at this position. All right, let's bring the Nuggets back in.
Yeah, no idea. My connection says it's fine, but it is what it is. All right, moving along, because I wanted to bring this up with nugget number 1 going into nugget number 2. And it kind of goes along with the culture and the CEO head coach idea. I was reading an article by Zach Berman in The Athletic last night, and it talks about Nick Sirianni as essentially the CEO head coach and who he has studied to become a leader, right? And that is one Steve Kerr. And one particular word that was fascinating from the whole article was the word joy. He studied Steve Kerr in the sense of having sustained success and how they created a sustained winner in Golden State. And something that he has implemented into his kind of philosophy as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles is he seeks joy. He wants his players to seek joy in coming into the building every day. And one way they do that is if you look around the NovaCare in the building, there are tons of pictures of celebrations, whether it's them winning the Super Bowl, whether it's Barkley jumping backwards over a guy. And that is done on purpose. That's not just there to highlight stuff. That is there on purpose to create a sense of culture and joy. And Steve Kerr it apparently has been a very big influence from afar to Nick Sirianni as a head coach. He's taken a lot of the philosophies from what the Golden State Warriors did in San Francisco now over in Golden State into what they have implemented with the Eagles and what they are trying to do. And Sirianni has talked about this multiple times, and Steve Kerr was quoted and he was asked about this from what he thought about Sirianni in this sense. And he is an NFL fan. He said, quote, "I see Nick on the sidelines like this is insane, but it's kind of what you sign up for when you get to Philly. And I think that Nick has handled that incredibly well. And it's always harder to do when you're faced with the scrutiny and criticism in a city like here. But I think really almost universally because of social media, all coaches are facing some of that. So ignorance is bliss. Trying not to look at that stuff is important, but I've admired watching Nick and the success of the Eagles. And in the face of intense heat, it's really impressive." So he has taken something from one of the great coaches in basketball and applied it to what they have in Philadelphia. And this is why you have so many players speak so highly of Sirianni, because he instills the word joy and that type of culture in the locker room. And that's why I would take him over Shanahan, because that's what he's instilled in Philadelphia.
Well, listen, I think many head coaches around sports always admire somebody who does nothing but win, right? They admire people who win and how they find different ways to win, not following the same path as everybody else, not trying to emulate somebody else, but doing it your way. The problem is casual sports fans or even hardcore sports fans have a hard time relating to something different, something they're not used to, something that they weren't taught when they were younger. Many things that we take come from when we were kids, and that's what we were taught when we were kids, that this is the way it has to be done. And Sirianni doesn't do it the way that we were taught. I can tell you, people in my generation, the way Nick Sirianni coaches, that's not the way that it was when we were growing up. You know, if you're about my age group, you were watching the game change from a run-oriented league to all of a sudden you started to see guys like Dan Marino and John Elway and these gunners that were out there throwing the ball all over the field, which you didn't see that in the previous generation. So we saw these guys who were throwing it all over, and you started to see the influx of the running quarterback started to enter the league. Well, now Sirianni's scaling everything back here to where it's like, this is, what happened to these high-flying offenses? And he's saying, nope, I'm going to be the guy who doesn't turn the ball over. We're going to take care of the ball, and we're going to win with defense and winning the turnover battle. So he does it. And by the way, for a guy who's been in the league for 5 years, he's already got a tree. And I'm not saying the tree's great, but there's guys that keep getting plucked off his staff. Kellen Moore, John Gannon, Shane Steichen. I mean, he's been in the league for 5 years, already put in 3 head coaches. Yeah, I mean, teams that see a winner want a piece of that, right? That's why there hasn't been an offensive coordinator sustained for Jalen Hurts here for a while, because they're finding ways to win, and people want that success, and so do other organizations. And it's funny. And towards the end of the article, I didn't even know this. Boston Bruins head coach Marco Sturm recently said he spent time in the offseason studying Nick Sirianni. So you have from the Boston Bruins an NHL coach studying what Nick Sirianni does to try and implement that there. So, we might take for granted Sirianni. We know he's got the antics, and we're going to criticize him at times. That's part of being a head coach. But the guy's a winner, and there are other coaches around all sports taking what Sirianni has done and trying to implement that into what they're doing.
because you always hear it from former players. You hear it from current players. They are attached to this guy. They have bought into Sirianni no matter what the outside noise, what you and I say. They don't care. They are bought into the program, and a big part of it is the joy aspect and having fun. They've just instilled a fun culture in the NovaCare, and they continue to win because of it. Even when their offense looks awful every single week, they find ways to win. And the outside noise has not bled in to the culture there.
Hey, we asked a question this weekend, and the question was, I think it was on Friday, we asked a question on Twitter, which was, will Nick Sirianni end up in the Hall of Fame? I mean, Think about this. He has 65 wins in 5 seasons, okay? If you double that, he will match Andy Reid's total in 13 years in 10 seasons. So realistically, Sirianni, if he stays on this pace, he will be the Eagles' all-time win leader by about his 10th season in the league. Now, Andy Reid won 10 playoff games as well, so his total number is 140. Sirianni's total number is 65 in 5 years. Andy had 140 in 13 years. So in about 10 years, he's going to get to 130, and then you would think if he gets to one more year. Now, the questions are, is Nick Sirianni going to be here in 5 years, 6 years? But we were talking about whether or not Nick Sirianni would be in the Hall of Fame. If he stays on this pace with the amount of wins he averages per season, plus a Super Bowl, been to a Super Bowl, 5 playoff appearances already, you're looking at a guy who's going to be a Hall of Fame head coach, whether you like it or not.
He's on the trajectory. I would not be shocked if he's in the Hall of Fame at some day. I mean, it's just he's on that trajectory already. Like it's unbelievable. If you just take a step back and look at the macro instead of the micro right now, even if they were to lose to San Francisco next week, the guy's done a heck of a job. I mean, remember, we go back to the first press conference, and apparently it might be a good omen if you have a bad first press conference, because Liam Cohen had an awful one this year with the Duval thing, and the Jaguars are in the playoffs. So we go back to that, and now look. We're like, man, we really missed on this guy early on because that was a bad first press conference, a bad first impression, but man, has he kind of lived up to it. And the flower thing early in the first year, the first couple of years, that was a big deal. So I think, he's a very good head coach. He's a good manager of personalities and men. And I don't think people understand that, hey, it's not all about the X's and O's. I like the CEO head coach, but they do have to find a guy who could call plays and scheme some things up because the offense, it's been in trouble this year.
Well, to be fair to the play caller, who I'm not a big fan of either, but this is Nick's offense. So there's that. There is that wrench in the wheel for Nick, is that, hey, it's your offense that keeps letting these teams not down because they keep winning, but when you do fall short, it's generally because your offense wasn't good enough.
Yeah, it's the talent's there. That's why everyone's so frustrated, and the bucks are there. The dollar signs are there with this offense, and it has not lived up to the expectation that people have thought. All right, moving along. Final nugget. This one's a hilarious one. So I saw this on social media today. Philly Bar Ladder 15. They denied a group of 49er fans from hosting a party and get-together at their bar in Philadelphia this week. So an email was sent. This was put out by Eagles Nation on Twitter. Someone sent in, hey, nice to meet you. Typical on Friday night. It's the first night of a takeover weekend for Niners fans. So anywhere throughout the night, we can have 100 to 200 people, give or take. With this being a big game, I'm thinking about 150 to 200 Niners fans, and that's a rough estimate. The bar responded, after very little consideration, we cannot in good conscience host anything that has to do with the 49ers. We're Birds fans till the end. We bleed green. We back our team when it comes at a cost. Only reason I wish you luck is because the 49ers are going to need it. Enjoy your time in the city of brotherly love. That's outstanding. outstanding
You know,
stuff.
it's funny. I did not see that until about 10 minutes ago. It popped up on one of my social media feeds, and I was laughing because I was like, you saw what happened last year when Washington came here.
The Hard
and
Rock.
They went to the Hard Rock, and everyone was like, yeah, you guys can hang out there. But this was, what was it, ladder 57?
15. Ladder 15.
Ladder 15. I think they saw some of the backlash from teams in the past who have gone to places to kind of have their parties and decided we don't want any part of that. I have been on, like, I did one of those Philly sports trips one year. We went to Pittsburgh, and, you know, you got to find a bar somewhere to carry all the fans. Like, so somebody ends up doing it, but good by them to say, you know what, 150 people. Let's say 150 people. What do you think each person's paying per person? Right? You think like $30, if not more, per?
Well, it's like $17 for a drink in the city at this point.
So you're
Like
saying, you know,
50.
let's say each person's paying about $50 each. You're looking at a loss of about $7,500 to $8,000, maybe more.
Yeah. So I mean, that's
loss.
dedication. That's dedication as a Birds fan, right there, from that establishment. So
That's definitely big. That's a big loss for you to take just for the team there.
Yeah, in the past, we had like the Rocky statue, the Vikings fan, they put that, they had like 100 people there in front of that. And last year was the Hard Rock thing. And now this year, who knows where they're going to go? They're going to be somewhere on the side of the road, it seems like.
They'll find a spot. Someone will take them.
They will. All right, Mike. Those are the Nuggets today. A little early edition of Nick's Nuggets.
Yeah, Niners fans being 86th at ladder 15 up there in Philly. 425 start. So, hey, that's another thing, too. With the late 425 start, the bar get a pretty good crowd. My number might be a little low.
Yeah, could be a little low. Could be.
Yeah. All right.
With that
going
group.
to game on Sunday still?
I think so. Yeah. Seems like it's going to happen.
Great. All right. I'm a little disappointed you weren't there last night for the Fly Guys.
No, I was not. I'm working the Sixers tonight and Flyers tomorrow. So there we go.
Sixers tonight, Wizards. By the way, Kelly Oubre, Trenton Wofford back for the Sixers. Looks like they're going to be probably the first time all season at full strength.
Yeah, how about that? That's a sight to see. You don't get those very often.
Embiid probable tonight as well. So the Sixers and the Wizards. By the way, the Wizards, 7 guys have been ruled out for the game, including C.J. McCollum, Kenyon George. Yeah,
not good for the Sixers. Not good for the Sixers.
All right,
it doesn't go well.
We'll do it again tomorrow. Nick's Nuggets, everybody, here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. And, of course, live video streaming on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel at Mike Gill Show on the X platform. Easy to do. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for live shows each and every day. If you missed any part of the show, you can go back and rewatch on your YouTube app. Download the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Listen to the show wherever you go. Coming up, Kevin Durso was there last night for 97.3 ESPN.com. You can read more about that Flyers game. Special night last night. Trevor Zegras with a pair of – both goals were almost identical spots on the ice, too, by the way. We'll talk about his impact, the ceiling of this team. Does he like Danny Briere's messaging? That's all still to come. This hour brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating, plumbing service, installation for generations. Call 609-390-3907 online. Broadlees.net. Got the unsportsmanlike moment of the day coming up in about 20 minutes as well. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. 329 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Flyers with a win last night over the Ducks. You heard it right here on 97.3 ESPN. What a game. What an awesome moment last night. Zegras scores the first goal to tie it up. Place is going bonkers. Then he gets almost the carbon copy goal. It's a power play goal from Zegras, his second of the night, and the Flyers going to win on just a wild night. That's the kind of game that you're hoping can get the fan base really energized. And maybe even Kevin Durso, 97.3 ESPN.com Flyers insider, maybe he can get the team to take some notice. I want to start there before we look at the game last night. I heard Danny Briere recently, I think this was the other day, he was asked about this team and the success they're having and whether or not that changed their outlook. He said, no, we're still thinking about the future. If you're a guy on this team, you're in third place in the Metro, you're right there. How you feeling when your GM comes out and says, I don't really care about this team? It's all about the teams down the road, not your team.
See, that's not the way I took it at all. To me, the messaging was because it followed up the Christian Dvorak contract extension, which to me was an indication that they do not plan whatsoever to sell any piece whatsoever on this team. So as a result, you are telling the locker room by making that contract extension, we believe in you fully. Now, whether you're a guy who was on this team 2 years ago who went on a run that went to the last game of the season and didn't make it, or whether you're a newcomer who's having potentially the time of their lives, Zegras, Dvorak, Dan Vladar, these three guys who just showed up this year, they're all contributing in a big way. You now know that your general manager is saying, the guys that are here, you're here for the year. And if something makes sense, not just this year, but also in years to come, then we'll do it and we'll enhance this team. And to a degree, like if you're Christian Dvorak, you just got a 5-year contract extension. You know where you stand. Same thing with, eventually it's going to happen for Zegras. There's totally mutual interest there. So it's going to happen, no question about that. And, those guys, because of that, you have enough guys on this team that are under contract for long enough that they know they're part of the future too. So I think there's an understanding that this means we support you this year, but also we're going to only make a deal if it makes sense and not do anything to take away from what we could do down the road, because they want to keep those assets for whenever the right opportunity comes up. Kind of like if a Zegras opportunity comes up again, because Zegras, that was a deal you made in the offseason, low risk. You use one of your assets as a draft pick. You use a player like Ryan Poehling to acquire him. You get a player who's 24 who now fits into your long-term future. That's the kind of move Briere is trying to position himself for it when the time comes. And they're not going to just make a trade to get a player for half a season.
I want to get your thoughts because there's a lot of split views on the Dvorak deal. Where did you kind of lay on that one? I heard you were on somebody was filling in for me. I guess it was Nick and Pete last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever that was, and you were saying, that's an indication of how little depth there is at that position, just in the free agent pool. But a 5-year deal, I was kind of like, that's a little bit of an eye opener for a guy at his age and where this team kind of sits. What did you think about that deal for Dvorak?
Yeah, love the cap hit, hate the term. It's, the cap hit makes a lot of sense. It's a good value. It's not something that's going to hinder you from doing more to build out your team. I would not have topped out at more than 3 years. And the 3-year thing would only have been if you really needed to throw a third year in to get that done because of how thin you were. I can understand pushing 3 years down the line and saying, we've got prospects in the system that are that long away. You just drafted a guy like Jack Nesbitt in the draft this past year, and I think you can safely say 3 years down the line, you're not thinking about him right now. You're probably not thinking short term right now with Jet Lachenko anymore either. So then you start to go into the trade market, the free agent market. Well, the free agent market dried up. There's next to nothing left. Dvorak was actually probably a top 2 or 3 center on the market if he were to make it to free agency. So they basically re-signed him because he was going to be one of the top options anyway out there. And now you have to kind of wait and see as it plays out where the trade market goes. If something does open up, kind of like it did with Zegras, where if somebody just is at the end of their rope with another team and is looking for a new opportunity, wants a clean slate, seems like that's the type of thing that would need to happen for the Flyers to get a player who it fits into that age range where it doesn't feel like it's, like they're signing a 29-year-old going on 30.
Kevin Durso covers the Flyers for 97.3 ESPN.com. You were there last night. The place was rocking, right? I mean, and it looks like every time Cutter Gauthier comes in this building for the rest of his career. Now, he got the first laugh. He scores early in the game, but this place erupted last night. This was an atmosphere, and I'm assuming with Zegras here and him there, this is going to be something for at least the next, few years if they're both still here.
Oh, for sure. And, if you would have told me, 5-10 years ago that the biggest rivalry that the Flyers have right now would be a team that they see twice a year on the other side of the country, that it's just not, you wouldn't expect it to be the rivalry that it is, but it has become heated. These two teams do not like each other for all of those reasons. I had a sense coming into this that Gauthier wasn't going to be silenced completely in this game, that he's turned his game around enough over the last year to make some sort of impact. So he gets on the board first. But I had a sense that Zegras was going to play play as advertised. And sure enough, he gets 2 to top Gauthier there. And, what I love about Zegras at this point for this team is, there have been years past where they didn't have playoff aspirations, where they weren't a very good team, and they kind of had players on the roster, and some of them are still here. But I think when you inject a player like Zegras, who brings both the personality and then the energy level, like feeding off of the crowd in that way, you saw the celebrations he had. And sure, it's against his former team, but he celebrates like that sometimes when it's not his former team too. So a player like that who brings that level of energy is perfect for them right now. And the fact that it looks like, even though they haven't, at least according to Briere, started any conversations about Zegras' future yet, it's not like both sides aren't expressing mutual interest. So this is going to get to that point at some point down the road. And when it does, you're looking at a guy who's probably going to be here for the long haul. And as a result, I think that just fits the mold so perfectly. He seems way happier here. I like that you can inject his personality into the locker room like that. And he goes out and right now he just keeps delivering on a night in, night out basis. There's, Earnshaw just brought up the play on the power play goal that starts with Tippett, and he goes between his legs to make a play. Touch pass by Couturier, fake shot by Cam York, Zegras with the finish. Zegras had made a play not long before where he made a really nice no-look pass to Travis Konechny that was on a breakaway. That was, to that point, I'm like, that's, and for the 2 goals, as good as they were for him in that game, that play right there, that pass, was the moment for me that I knew he was feeling it, and probably the best play I've seen him make all year, which is saying a lot because he's made a lot of good plays all year.
So what would you say Zegras is in terms of, is he the best player on the best team? Is he a guy that you look at and say, hey, you have that guy, you can win a Stanley Cup, or is he a secondary player?
I think he's not, I don't think he's the guy on a team, but I also think about team, a good comparison here would be the Flyers are about to play Toronto tomorrow night. And Toronto kind of has, for a long time, it was the core 4. Mitch Marner's no longer on the team. So now it's kind of a group of 3 here, but you have 3 guys that kind of get all the attention. I think Zegras could be one of those types of guys, maybe not the best player on the team, but certainly right up there at the top, and certainly a guy that you lean on to contribute on a regular basis. This is how he started his career in Anaheim. He kind of came out like gangbusters in the beginning and was, as a rookie in his second year, he was drawing a lot of the attention. And then they made a coaching change, and the coach didn't really care for him too much, put him on the wing. He wasn't happy with that situation. Now, ironically enough, he's on the wing here too, but I think there's a difference in the communication, a difference in the way that the system operates that works for him. So he's taking it with a whole new approach, and I don't think it affects him anymore. It's kind of, the way that they play, I don't think there's really set roles here. It's kind of a hybrid situation for him. So he's able to go and play his game. It's translated to him being a point per game player so far. And as such, if this is the version of Trevor Zegras you're going to get, which is a version that while he was in Anaheim, those first couple of years, people thought this is what he could amount to. If that's the case, then yeah, I see him being capable of being a top 3 player on a team for sure.
So obviously the trade deadline in the NHL is a ways off. I mean, they got the whole Olympic break here. So this team is pretty much going to be here for a little while. But what do you make of where they sit right now? 51 points, 3rd place in the Metro. But you could easily be in last place in 2 weeks if you have a bad week.
Yeah, and look no further than the team you played last night for the example. They were leading the Pacific Division in early to mid-December. And then they lost. That's now, I believe that's 12 losses in 14 games for Anaheim. And as a result, they're not in a playoff spot today. That's how quickly this thing shifts. And that was we're talking 3 weeks to a month ago, they were leading their division. So the thing that the Flyers have done well all season to stay in that position is they don't lose back-to-back games very often. They've only lost back-to-back games in regulation one time this season, which means that they are continuing to pick up points with regularity. And as such, the thing that's going to help them going forward, and ironically, everybody around them seemed to win yesterday. Carolina, who's leading the division, won against Dallas. That's a tough matchup. The Islanders throttled the Devils 9-0 last night. So they continue to win games. But in the same respect, the Islanders playing the Devils are a team behind the Flyers in the standings that if these kind of games keep going that way, and there's one team, 3 or 4 teams in the division that keep winning and 3 or 4 that keep losing, you'll create separation and it'll kind of carve out a path where the Flyers are on the right side of that and in the playoff picture. So far, they've been able to do that. And I really think that with some of the games that they have coming up this month, Toronto tomorrow, who has turned it around lately. Tampa's the best team points-wise in the Eastern Conference right now, and they've got them for 2 in a row on home ice this kind of over the weekend and into Monday. A little bit of a road trip that comes up. Buffalo's been playing well. They got them coming up. Pittsburgh still got their veteran superstars. So there's a lot of games ahead with teams that have been playing well lately. And if the Flyers can kind of get to the Olympic break and still be in this position, that to me is going to be pretty close to definitive that they're in this thing to the end. And that's when I I did this 2 years ago with you where we constantly kind of talked and it was like, well, what's it going to take for me covering the team to be a believer of it? And it kind of got towards the end of March when I finally kind of said, I think they might do it. And then they fell apart somehow still. So I'm waiting to get to the Olympics.
I don't know about you, but I feel like people are starting to because, it's a team that is actually not sitting in that. Now, yesterday they're in the wild card. Today they're in one of the, the 3 spots. But it feels like they have, for whatever reason, given this team, this fan base, maybe because they're just so starving for this team to make the playoffs after not being there for 5 years. But do you get the feeling that there is more buzz in the building?
Certainly the last 2 games, that's for sure. That they've actually had back-to-back sellouts for the first time since the 2019-20 season. So it gives you an indication that people are starting to show up and give a little more attention. Now, it just happened to work out that the previous 2 games, the first one that I'm referring to is their last game of 2025, which was right before Christmas. So kind of, I think because they didn't have the annual Black Friday game this year that they typically do, I think a lot of people kind of focused in on that one as maybe the one game that they try to get to. And then everything with the way it's been with Anaheim has turned it into must-see hockey. So that turned into a game that people want to see. But as it moves forward, I'd like to see if the crowds continue to be that way because there's a reason to buy into what they're doing right now. And I think, to me, the number one difference so far between the team from 2 years ago and the team right now is you've got a goaltender. And you've got a goaltender who is helping you get that goals against number way down. You're in the top 5 in the league in goals against this year, which is kind of transformative to the way this team has been over the last 5 years. So because of that, if that maintains, that's probably the catalyst to making the playoffs.
All right, Durso's back, of course, here on the Sports Bash as the Flyers are back on Thursday night, taking on the Leafs. You can listen to that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Saturday, taking on Tampa Bay. That game will be on Rock 104.1. And then Monday night against Tampa as well. Follow Kevin at Kevin_Durso and get all his coverage at 97.3ESPN.com. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, Mike. Thanks.
All right, there's Kevin Durso, everybody. The Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. When we come back, it's today's Unsportsmanlike moment of the day. What did Evan Cohen, Michelle Smallman, and Chris Canty bring to the table today? Well, if you travel, you might want to stick around to find out. That's next. This is the Sports Bash.
Okay.
You get to a hotel.
Yes.
Where do you unpack? Or do you not unpack?
No, I'm an unpacker.
Regardless of how many days? You're there for a day?
I unpack.
Me too. Where do you put the suitcase?
I open it on the floor or on one of those suitcase things.
Yeah, they
whatever
have
it's
the
called.
suitcase thing.
But we all know what you're talking about when you say that luggage thing. So I will open it on the floor or on the luggage rack. And I usually have things that need to be hung up and or steamed or ironed. You know, in travel, things get wrinkly, whatever. So I will hang my outfits in the closet and I will hang them in order that I'm going to wear them and put the designated shoes per outfit under there. And everything else will, I don't do
Do you
everything.
put stuff in the drawers?
No, I'm not putting my stuff in those drawers. I don't know how they're washing those drawers.
So if you have a T-shirt you're going to use or a workout shirt, you won't put that. Where will you put
Workout
that?
stuff will remain in the suitcase. A t-shirt I would hang.
All right, there's your unsportsmanlike moment of the day. How do you unpack when you get to the hotel? It's brought to you by Whitehorse RV Center. Find fall closeout savings on 2025s and select pre-owned RV shop now before they're gone. Whitehorse RV, your RV adventure starts here. So, very interesting breakdown by Michelle and Evan today.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, the whole conversation started this morning on Sportsmanlike because they were talking about how you never open the suitcase or put the suitcase on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And which I was like, I'm like pumping my fist in the car. I'm like, yes, thank you. Because I've seen people do this. And it like creeps me out because it's like, I'm going to sleep in that thing. I'm not putting like my dirty suitcase has been everywhere, rolling across the floors and stuff on top of the bed. Like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I would generally, there's that little thing at the end of the bed or something that you kind of put the suitcase on there. And if not, usually a chair like in the corner. But usually they have that little like, it's not like a table, but it's like a something. I don't know what
it's
it
like
is.
a landing spot. It's a luggage rack, sometimes it's called. So
I utilize that.
So like I was so excited when they first said that, but then they started getting into the whole conversation about, well, what do you do with what's in your suitcase? And you know, the whole Michelle saying, hey, you know, I'll hang things up, but I won't use the drawers, which again, I'm totally with her because of the fact that I'm a bit of a clean freak. So for me, I don't want to put my clean stuff in a drawer that I don't know if it's clean.
Yeah, if I'm like, I generally don't use the dresser drawers. I'll usually live out of the suitcase for most of the week. I will hang stuff up if I have stuff to hang.
Correct.
Like if there's a nicer shirt. For whatever reason, like something long sleeve, generally I view as a hang-up. A short sleeve, like a tee. Now, if it's a polo shirt, I'll probably hang that. T-shirts will stay in the bag.
Right.
Long sleeve, hoodie, button-up, stuff like that. Polo, they get hung up.
And I don't mind hanging things up because, you know, it's above ground. It's not touching anything. I'm cool with that. I just don't want my stuff touching something that I don't know if it's actually.
Yeah, see, if I'm only, a lot of times if I'm staying in a hotel, now, depending, like if I'm on a longer vacation and you're in the same hotel room for the week, that's not generally how I've traveled. If I'm away for longer, we bounce around a lot and go to different spots. Now, when I go to Florida for Clearwater spring training, we have an Airbnb. What about that? Do you put the stuff in the drawers there? Because you're there for like the week.
Right, you're there for a week. I would probably grab like one of those. I would wash the drawer myself. Like I would like get like some sort of like, you know, hand sanitizer, like a Lysol wipe or something. I would.
Do we have that little faith in the cleaning lady system?
It's not that I have little faith. I just don't trust anybody in general. It's not.
Isn't that the same thing?
Don't take it personal that I don't trust you. I just don't trust anybody.
I mean, she does a good job. She cleans the place left and right, and you're saying I don't trust you.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. I mean, I don't use the drawers generally because I find that by doing that, I tend to forget stuff and leave stuff in the drawer.
That's a good point. I never thought about it like that. Because it's
like
kind
I know
of out of mind.
Our Airbnb in Clearwater, we use the same one almost every single year.
Okay, that's cool.
So I know the closet, I usually will hang my stuff up, and then on the floor, I put my suitcase. So my suitcase is on the floor of the closet.
Right.
So it's basically in the closet the whole time that I'm there.
So, like, that's a little bit different, though, because an Airbnb that you go to the same one.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that other people aren't using it.
Like, comfort or, like, knowledge or, like, familiarity with it.
People are going in and out of that Airbnb just as much as they are the hotel, though.
That's true.
mean,
But
there's
I
nothing
feel-
different. It just happens to be a
I
house.
feel like an Airbnb is similar to like a summer rental where it's like you at least have a knowledge of how clean it could be.
See, these ones in Clearwater, though, like it's pretty much you're there for a weekend or a week, and they're flipping that thing around pretty frequently. Nobody actually lives there.
Gotcha.
It's not like one of these places where they live there, and then when they go
away,
they open it up. No, their place is just there to Airbnb.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I know that was a longer conversation. I would like to hear the rest of the conversation at some point. You can check that out on Unsportsmanlike. Stuff like that and more. Unsportsmanlike airs weekday morning 6 to 10 with Evan, Michelle, and Canty right here on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up a little later, Q Myers from Game Night on 97.3 ESPN Radio will join us. You hear Q Myers weeknights at 10 o'clock here on 97.3 ESPN. We're going to go Q Myers NFL playoff preview and offseason preview. Head coaching vacancies. You'll get a thought on all the games. That's coming up at 4:30. But when we come back, you know what time it is. It is football at 4. Geoff Mosher's in the house next on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. They're going to be rocking this weekend. Got the 2 games on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, 1 on Monday night. You can listen to most of the games right here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll have the 2 on Saturday, the Eagles on Sunday. We'll pick up the Pats and Chargers in progress after the Eagles game on Sunday, and then the Monday night game you can hear on 97.3 ESPN. Football at 4. Mosher will be joining us in just a couple of moments as he gets himself ready for today's Football at 4. Let's take a look at some of the Eagles news today. The big news on the Eagles side is, 1, they will have Lane Johnson on the practice, or they did have Lane Johnson on the practice field today. Also, Nakobe Dean was back at practice today. Meanwhile, for San Francisco, Trent Williams, their all-pro left tackle, was out today, and Ricky Pearsall, they're probably their top wide receiver. I would say he's their top wide receiver. But both Williams and Pearsall did not practice today, putting their availability in doubt for the game on Sunday. That according to Ann Rappaport. A couple big ones to watch there. Shanahan told the reporters that those 2 did not practice today. They are both in doubt for the game on Sunday. Now, on the flip side here, you have the Lane Johnson story. So, Lane Johnson, there was a lot of reports that he was going to be ready to play for the Buffalo game. One has to wonder a couple of things. Was he just not ready, or did they get a little cold feet and decide, hey, we don't want to get him hurt, let's just ramp him up and get him ready for the playoffs? There were some reports that he'd be back at practice today. That happened. He did practice today. Now, the report was that he was going to be back at practice today and that he had to try the foot out, essentially. So, did he make it through the practice? We'll see. Mosher can update us on that here in just a couple of moments. The other thing is Nakobe Dean. Dean had a hamstring problem. Those things don't generally go away as fast as you would like them to. He did not play last week, and he did not play in the Buffalo game. So, you're hoping that Nakobe Dean is back to full strength. If he is not, Jahad Campbell would play in his spot. But you can already see the differences in these 2 teams. The Philadelphia Eagles are essentially as healthy as that they have been all season long, if Lane Johnson, in fact, does return, if Nakobe Dean, in fact, does return. And right now they are both on the practice field. By the way, the team also designated Azeez Ojulari to return from the injured reserve, and he has a 21-day window now. And you might say, who cares about Azeez Ojulari? But just another possible depth piece in the pass rush that the Philadelphia Eagles had. George Kittle, by the way, he was limited at practice today, but we'll see. He thought that maybe he could have played. He made it through Week 18 without any injuries there, but he was limited today at practice. Trent Williams, as I mentioned, did not practice. Ricky Pearsall did not practice. And you take a look at the injury situation for San Francisco against Philadelphia. Philadelphia is clearly the healthier team in this game. There are really, other than, I guess, Andrew Makuba, I don't think there's another starter that started the first game of the season. Is there anybody that I'm forgetting about from Philadelphia that is out that was a contributor? Their entire offensive line is healthy and back. The tight end is here. The 2 receivers are here. Barkley's here. Hurts is here. So their entire opening night offensive line is healthy. On defense, the same 2 line. Well, actually, no, you got Dean back. He didn't start opening night. The entire defensive front is here, plus Jalen Phillips, Adoree Jackson, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. The only guy out is Makuba.
That's the stat we gave you earlier, where 21 of the 22 opening night starters are available to play when the Eagles start the postseason. This is now the 3rd time that they've had 21 of the 22 starters available to start a postseason.
Think about that. How many teams have 21 of 22 players healthy and available? How many?
It almost never happens.
Nick Sirianni today was asked about Kevin Patullo. Nick, you were a first-time play caller once. What are the challenges in going for the first time have you seen from them countered by offensive Kevin? What the hell was this question? What are the challenges going in for the first time, and have you seen some of them countered by offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo and how he's dealt with things overall? So the question is essentially asking, what do you think of Kevin Patullo as a first-time play caller? Here's what Sirianni said today.
Obviously, there's always adjustments, and as you go through. I thought he's done a nice job of handling everything that's come his way, staying mentally sharp, and staying mentally tough. Because I know there's always going to be criticism, and you're probably not, as the offense coordinator, you might not get as much praise, but you're always going to get some criticism. And but I think he's done a nice job handling that, and I think that. We've done some really good things, and we're getting better as the season goes through. We got to be even more consistent.
So he goes on to say, there's always times coming out of every game. He said there's going to be calls you want back. Players are going to have plays they want back. I'm going to have discussions that we talk through or throughout the week or during the game that I'm going back, and that's the nature of this thing. So if you're Kevin Patullo, he says there's always adjustments as you go through. Right off the bat, he is trepidatious about his answer here. But he's done a nice job of handling everything that's come his way. Translation is, we're not good enough. He's done a nice job. Hey, how's this shirt look on? It's nice. Oh, it looks great. It's a great outfit for you. It looks nice. That's what he said. What do you think of my new haircut? It's nice. Not like, oh, that's the best haircut you've ever got. Whoever cut that, you should go back to that guy or girl. Yeah, it looks nice. That's what Nick Sirianni essentially said right there. I mean, to me, it sounds like Nick Sirianni knows he's got a dud that he's got to walk into these playoffs arm in arm with. Because at the end there, where he says, throughout the week, I'm going to have to go back in and make sure. In other words, I got to babysit this guy.
And remember, it was Jalen Hurts who said to the media a few weeks ago that the offense started getting better when Nick Sirianni got more involved. He said that Sirianni brought more structure to the game plan.
Yeah, well, I think that answer right there tells us a lot about the way Sirianni's going in. He knows that he has a problem. This whole thing's going to be wild.
By the way, a problem that's his own fault.
Oh, I agree.
Nick Sirianni did not have to go to bat for his boy. He could have had an honest conversation with Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie and said, look, I really like Kevin. I think Kevin deserves a shot, but I also understand that we just won a Super Bowl with an experienced veteran coordinator. What are our options? He could have done that, but instead he said no. He went to bat for his guy, Kevin Patullo, and now he's stuck with the bed that he made.
By the way, during the Hard Knocks last night, I meant to ask this earlier because I have not seen Hard Knocks yet. Did they talk about at all? Did they talk about whether they're going to rest players or not?
Yes.
So during the show, they did kind of go through
There's
that?
an entire scene where Sirianni lays out the plan to the players in the meeting, and then he has a conversation with a specific player about the resting and why they do it the way they do it. I don't want to give too much away for you, Mike, but it's a very interesting perspective on how Sirianni speaks to the players and presents the.
Well, I was wondering if that was something that came up because I was interested to see if he addressed it and that they put it in the show.
They did.
So that the Eagles signed off on letting HBO let everybody know that they told everybody ahead of time.
Yeah, there's a scene where Sirianni talks to the whole team, and then there's other scenes where he talks to individual players.
Yeah, I mean, I'm for the people just tuning in, I have not seen the Hard Knocks from last night yet, so I wasn't sure if that was something that was.
Well, that's one of the things I liked about it was that they gave you an inside look at how the Eagles handled that whole situation, and it kind of gives you an understanding of why the players like Sirianni because of the fact that he does communicate with them. He's not some aloof guy. Just like one of the issues with Sean McVay at times is he's a bit of a aloof guy. He's so busy game planning, doesn't even actually interact with the players.
Well, one of the things about, if you remember, Sean McVay, his first couple of years when he had
Wade Phillips
as the coordinator, McVay didn't even watch the defense play.
That's correct.
He would just turn around, sit on the bench, and talk to his offensive guys. I'm sorry, I don't want my head coach not paying attention to what my defense is doing.
And so if you read the book, The Why is Everything, it documents in there how Raheem Morris, who when he became his DC, he had to confront McVay and be like, dude, you got to be more involved. You're the head coach of the team. You're not just the offensive play caller. And he challenged McVay to become more involved.
Yeah, which, I think is something that if you're a player on that team, you would want your head football coach to be paying attention to what's going on both sides of the ball.
And which is where Hard Knocks has done, I think, a good job of showing that Sirianni interacts with everybody. He's not just talking to the wide receivers. He's a former wide receiver coach. Like, he interacts and has conversations with everyone on the team.
All right, Football at 4, Geoff Mosher's in the house. Of course, you can read his stuff at phillyvoice.com. You can hear him on the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. So, Geoff Mosher, first day back at practice, and the Eagles got some good news. I don't know if it means definitive good news, but Lane Johnson back at the practice field, Nakobe Dean. We did get a little insight yesterday from Vic Fangio, but it looks like Dean and Lane Johnson, both at least back at practice. Are we feeling that they are targeting both of those guys to play on Sunday?
Yeah, Mike, they're definitely targeting to play. I always say sometimes with injuries like a soft tissue injury like a hamstring or even a Liz Frank with what Lane Johnson has dealt with, that it's always good to see them back at practice, but you always tomorrow, Thursday is the big day. Well, really in the morning, it's how do they feel the next morning? Especially with Lane, who hasn't practiced in over 7 weeks, how does just getting out and practicing today impact the heel? How does it respond? Is it sore? With Nakobe, that's a hamstring. They just have to make sure it doesn't reflare up. But really with Lane, who's going to be taking vertical sets in practice, he's going to be, assuming he practiced in full, we have to see the report when it comes out. But obviously response to your first action and your first impact on that right heel or right foot, I should say, for the first time in about 2 months is a really big indicator.
Yeah, and obviously Lane has been out since week 11, so you're going all the way back into like November here that he has not played. And, for him to jump right back in there, it is Lane Johnson. He is a little older, but we anticipate that will be an upgrade, even though Fred Johnson, didn't play terrible in his, run out there, but it's just different having Lane Johnson out there. Can they do different things? Do they not do certain things because Lane is or is not out there?
There are certain things that you do or can do with Lane as far as not having to, as long as he's the Lane Johnson that plays at an all-pro level when he's out there, they don't have to help him with a tight end on his side. Don't have to help him with a chipper, like a running back chip as much. They can move him around if they want to do a tackle trap play, which they don't do a ton of, but they'll do a little bit. Yeah, there are some, I would say, I don't know. Some people might call them minor differences. Some people might call them major differences. The ability to get a running back or a tight end with an immediate release instead of a chip. Some people might say that's a huge difference. It just depends on who you're playing and how well you're executing. So
I was watching a lot of the game on Saturday night, and if you watch Seattle, one of the things they did really well was kind of run the ball to the outside. They basically kept pitching and hitting the corners. They used their receivers a lot to block. That's something the Eagles don't do a whole heck of a lot of. They don't run a lot of stuff, just, pitches and sweep type of stuff. Is that something, though, that they can incorporate?
So teams tend to do what their strength and their identity is, Mike. They can always find things on tape or tells and attack certain areas, and they can obviously see that on tape and think that maybe in their own way of running, right, they can hit the edges. So you might see outside. The Eagles run a lot of outside zone, but to your point, it's not like a sweep. It's not an under center sweep. Could they incorporate that a few times? Sure. I think sometimes people will watch games, see that, and say that's what you got to do, but forget that that's not necessarily the strength of the team doing it, right? So the Eagles aren't going to deviate from what they do best or what they think they do best just because another team had success a certain way.
Right, and, one of the things that's interesting, I was talking about this earlier, is, Petula's obviously gotten a lot of heat. I don't know that Sirianni gave him a ringing endorsement today during his presser. he's done a nice job. Hey, your hair looks nice. Hey, honey, how's my new shirt? It's nice. But I will say for Patullo is I think two big things happened this year that really were under the radar that changed the offense maybe. When Van Sumeren goes down, that's a page out of the playbook that gets completely ripped out that I think they were anticipating using him as a fullback more. And then you lose Johnny Wilson. You're blocking wide receiver, and that was a guy that, two guys that you're just like, whatever. But those two guys are like the glue guys that kind of make certain plays work, and that's a couple plays in the playbook that are no longer something they can use. And if you're asking your wide receivers to block down the field, that's essentially saying, hey, AJ and Devontae, can you be a bigger part of the offense this week in that capacity? Probably not something they're all that enthused about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said for that. I don't know. I know that their plans for Ben Van Sumeren, interesting that they're playing the 49ers here this weekend. Their plans for Ben were to use him as a fullback plus, right? A fullback who might have also been able to return kicks. That's how athletic he was. But who could have given you maybe a few catches here and there, a few runs, obviously good blocking. And they've used Cam Latu in that role, at least as a fullback. Not nearly the same way because he's not the athlete that Ben Van Sumeren is. But you're right in that last year, despite being a team that played a decent amount of 12 personnel than most, when they did go to 11 personnel, they would put Wilson out there 6-7 times a game and have him block. And it's really, I called it, it's 11 personnel disguised as 12 personnel, meaning like you got 3 receivers out there, but you really got like an extra tight end with Wilson. And they didn't have that this year. So they probably put Calcaterra out on the field more than anybody wants to see it, which they may not be able to do. I don't want to call it a blessing in disguise. I think that's sort of disrespectful. But if Calcaterra can't play against the Niners because of his injury, because I don't think he was at practice today, and it forces them to put Cam Latu out there more and as a blocker, that might actually be a better thing for the run game because we know that Grant Calcaterra is not a great blocker himself.
Right.
But yeah, there are some missing elements, sure, that Kevin Patullo didn't have this year that other coordinators had in the past.
Well, and, there's two sides of the coin here. One, we're talking about how well Seattle ran the ball and how they did it. You're also facing the team that has the lowest amount of sacks in the league and also the lowest pressure rate in the league. They have 20 sacks all season long. You should have time to throw the ball, you would think, and it also could set up well to see Jalen Hurts on some quarterback sweeps, some quarterback design runs. Like it feels like with the linebacking core as decimated as they are, this could be a big Jalen Hurts type of day.
Well, I would not be shocked at all if you saw a lot of those spread empty formations on 3rd and 4th and short that are designed quarterback runs up the middle because the Niners have almost no depth at this point at linebacker. And even if they decide to play more like big nickel to compensate, they might put Upton Stout on the field a lot more. He's a really nice rookie nickel corner, but still their size will be an issue and it will give the Eagles the advantage there. But I guess we'll find out, Mike, in this week and coming weeks, if they keep winning, if they were withholding the Jalen Hurts run just for the playoffs or not, or if it's just not as big a part of the game plan as it used to be.
And you say that, and it's like you almost have to think that is something they want to do more of, right? I mean, it's like crazy to think that they don't want to implement that more, and you understand why they don't. But now, okay, it's for real. Let's make sure that we implement 3 to 5 of these a game.
Yeah, I'm not of the belief that coaches withhold a whole lot of stuff in the regular season just to save for the playoffs. So it to me, from what I understand, it's been a calculated approach to reduce his running, right? But the playoffs attitudes typically change, and there could be times where you see Jalen Hurts just run because he sees the opportunity, gets down, you hope, right? Where it may not have been a part of the play call.
Are you of the belief that they wanted to showcase Tanner McKee the other day?
No.
That I agree with you. I got into this argument this morning with people who are just like, they want to, and I'm thinking, like, it doesn't even make any sense. Like, if you thought you could beat Washington with your backups, once the game is in play at 17-17, at that point, I think the showcasing him, if you even thought that was part of it, is over. You're trying to win that game in the best way possible, not, hey, let me showcase my guy. The game's 17-17 in the fourth quarter. I'm bewildered that people actually think that.
I'm not even sure I understand the concept of it. He's a backup, and they played backups. That's to me where the conversation begins.
The notion of if he played well, they could get a draft pick for him.
Well, I mean, I think that's a great consequence or byproduct of him going out there playing well, but I don't think Nick Sirianni was under any illusion that he was going to get starter level caliber play out of an entire offensive backups. I mean, no coach should think that way. I mean, they're not going to say that, but they have to know. You got Drew Kendall making his first start. You get Cameron Williams, who's basically been out for 14 weeks of the season, gets on IR, gets off IR, gets a few practices, and he's out there at right tackle. Like, what I don't understand what that, I mean, to me, he wasn't being showcased. He was starting because he's a backup, and they were starting backups.
So is this, I agree, is this the kind of game that you would be disappointed that if their offense struggled again? I mean, sure, you would be, but I'm saying, do you anticipate that San Francisco's scheme and system, because they're missing a lot of guys on defense.
Yeah, but they have been all year long. So to be fair, and I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, but how many times have the Eagles played a team that didn't have a great defense, and you're like, hey, this is and they haven't exploded on those teams. So I expect this to be a defensive struggle. I mean, I think the Eagles will win. I think when I say defensive struggle, what I'm saying is I think the Eagles are perfectly capable of blowing out the Niners if things go their way. But what I really think is going to be is more like a 23-13 type game.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. If this is one of these playoff runs where they're winning games, but it's like 20-16 and 18-14, and it's just like you're slothing through, it's going to be an interesting conversation at the end of the year. Even if you're winning games with lousy offense, at some point you there's got to be questions asked here, right? Because you're starting to get some interesting candidates out there.
I mean, I wrote about this on Philly Voice. I think we look at it differently. I know we look at it differently than they look at it, right? Just listen. And you brought this to my attention because I'm not really much of a Hard Knocks watcher, but then I talked to you and you asked me if I see something that I got to go back and watch it. But you listen to Nick Sirianni talking to his coaches and talking to his players. They fundamentally believe with the team that they have had for the last 5 years going forward, right, that if they run the ball well and even if they're, keep trying, that's their identity. Right, run the ball well, play good defense, win the turnover battle, try to get more explosives from the offense, then they will win games. And guess what? They won 11 of 16 games they tried to win this year. So that's 69% of your games, right? So they are not going to go into the offseason, even if I wrote this funny on Philly, they could win the Super Bowl 6-3, right? And they're not going to go into the offseason being like, now we need a real play call, or now I'm not saying they're not going to make changes. What I'm saying is I don't think fundamentally their mindset is going to change. Like, we really need to now open the offense up. They're just going to most likely fix the offensive line, like draft more linemen, get better depth, get maybe some more blocking tight ends, and go back to trying to be more like what they were last year, which is still a moderate passing offense with a very strong, overpowering run game. You're not getting like the Cliff Kingsbury here. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and he would be interesting because, a guy who has worked with a guy like Kyler Murray, guys worked with Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels is not like a guy who's like running all over the place. He kind of, he does move, but he can throw the ball. And you think that Kingsbury, I would not want him to be my head coach.
Right.
But
I shouldn't have used his name, by the way, because he did interview, with Kellen Moore a couple of years ago. He was a candidate. But as every offensive coordinator who has come to the Eagles has found out, is that they are going to run Nick Sirianni's offense. That is my point.
Look, I talked about this morning. Look at Kellen Moore's offense this year.
Thank you.
As opposed to last year. He's got no weapons, no talent. He's using Spencer Rattler than a second-round pick, and they have more yards per game than the Eagles do.
Right. And this is why I sort of take the criticism of Kevin Patullo, which is fair, but also with a grain of salt, is because this is the only offensive coordinator the Eagles have had in the last, since Nick Sirianni became head coach, who didn't have an overpowering run game. This is the only one.
Yeah,
And
you're
everybody's
right.
judging him harshly, but every single guy, including Moore last year, by week 4 or 5, and this happened with Steichen in year 2, basically said, all right, I'm going to stop trying to do X, Y, and Z and just get back to the basics. And unfortunately for Kevin, he hasn't had the basic fundamental that they all had.
A dominant offensive line that they can run the ball
Correct.
basically whenever they need to.
Correct.
Geoff Mosher, check out more of his stuff at Philly Voice. And don't forget the Inside the Birds podcast. Football at 4 tomorrow. Andrew DeCecco's here, Adam Kaplan on Friday, and the Eagles on Sunday right here on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, Moshe.
You got it, man. Talk to you.
All right, he is back on Monday with a Mosher Monday recap of the Eagles and the Niners. When we come back, we're going to do Q Myers NFL playoff preview and a look at the offseason. Who's going where? That's next with Q Myers from Game Night right here on 97.3 ESPN. Hey, don't forget, when the Eagles win, you win. At the Nizam's in Egg Harbor Township, a free order of spicy tandoori chicken wings for dine-in customers. When the Eagles win, you win this Sunday against the Niners. They also have a great lunch buffet Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and a great banquet space that can seat up to 100 people for private events and celebrations. Check out the Nizam's right out front of Boscov's in Egg Harbor Township. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Our Q Myers playoff preview is here. Q Myers, host of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. While we're getting ready for the playoffs, he's looking for a new coach. He is on the offseason. Of course, he's also out there in Vegas for Raider Nation Radio. But the playoffs are front and center here. No coach is fired in these parts. When you saw what happened on Sunday with the Eagles as an observer, they chose to rest their starters. How did you take you're watching that, you're seeing that all unfold. The Lions win that game. Philly goes with the backups and lose. Do you like that decision, or were you like, what are you doing?
No, I kind of feel like it's always one of those hit or miss type situations. You know what I mean? It's like one of those that's so easy to second guess. And I'm one of those guys that I prefer a team to continue to have their momentum and keep playing. But then, if you get an injury, then it's like, why are these guys playing? It didn't really matter. So, I think Nick Sirianni has a good idea of what his team is and what they needed. And so if they decided to rest, I thought, okay, that must have been what they needed the most moving forward. So I was okay with it. I hate to try to second guess coaches because, again, they know a lot better the dynamic of their team than we do. I just always have preferred play it out, just keep these guys in a rhythm, right? Football players, as many of us are just creatures of habits, right? I mean, I'm a creature of habit when it comes to my radio shows, right? I mean, it's just like one of those things. It's like once that rhythm is broken, it's almost a little bit difficult sometimes to get it back. So I think that they'll be fine because they've been there, done that. They're Super Bowl champs, they're the defending Super Bowl champs. So it's not like there's some new team that just has discovered some kind of success. So I think that they'll be fine, but it's always one of those that's so easy to second guess.
Well, they get matched up with the 49ers, so let's start there. The Niners, the 6th seed, they had to play Saturday night. They got beat up a little bit. They lost another member of the defense. They got absolutely, run off the field by Seattle 13-3. Now, Seattle didn't blow them out in terms of 30-3, but Niners couldn't move the ball, couldn't do anything on them, and now they got to come across the country to Philadelphia. They played their guys Saturday. They were going for the 1 seed. They lose. They got to come to Philadelphia. What do you think of this matchup for Philly?
It's so funny. We were talking about this last night on Game Night, and as much as I've had Philly's back, I just keep feeling like this is like Brock Purdy's moment. Ever since he's come back from injury, he's been playing at a very high level. Now, they couldn't do anything against Seattle. That's the first and foremost. They weren't able to do anything against that defense. So I'm really interested to see how they match up. I think that Brock Purdy and the 49ers, everything that they've gone through this year, like Kyle Shanahan's done a hell of a job putting them in the position that they're in. And I know that there's no love lost between the Eagles and the 49ers. So that, to me, is one of the best matchups this wild card weekend. I'm excited about it. I feel like there's something there with Brock Purdy. And Mike, to be honest, I don't know what I'm going to expect to see from the Eagles in their offense. I feel like their defense is going to do a good job. I don't think they're going to go Seattle Seahawks on the 49ers, but I'm not 100% sure what offense I'm going to see from Philadelphia. I still have a few questions, but I'm leaning towards Brock Purdy and the 49ers, but them traveling and them beat up could end up being the X factor here.
Well, and it's only because the Eagles' offense is so inept. You watched them against the Raiders out there, even though they moved the ball well against the Raiders and everything. I remember you coming on and saying, the Raiders actually thought they had a chance to win that game because the Eagles' offense so inept. And nothing we've seen has changed that over the last month of the season, right?
Right, exactly. And then that's the big question. And, it's funny, and I've said this on this show so many times, that the Eagles are the most comfortable, uncomfortable team in the league, right? And it just seems like that storyline just keeps on rolling on. Like, you know what? It's uncomfortable the way that they're finding a way to get it done. It's uncomfortable the way that they're operating. But here they are, right? They're in the postseason. Not many are going to bet against them because of their pedigree, because of what they've been there, done that. The fact that they still have Jalen Hurts, they still have A.J. Brown, they still have Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, right? They still have all these players. Offensive line, a little compromise here and there. And defense, I don't think is quite as good as it was last year when they started this run. But at the same time, I mean, they've been there, done that. I think there's something to be said about that.
Well, and that's what makes it so perplexing, Q, is you got A.J. Brown, you got Devontae Smith, you got Jalen Hurts, you got Saquon Barkley, and the big problem has been their offensive line is not what it has been before.
Right.
But if I said, hey, this is your team in Vegas, wouldn't you be disappointed if this is what offense you ended up with?
Right, exactly. I mean, look, I'd take this every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Give me these problems. Give me these problems. I'll take them. But look, the thing about it is I think the X factor for the Eagles in this run, regardless if it ends on Sunday or if it goes, then they go and win another Super Bowl, is Jalen Hurts and his legs. He's got to commit to being willing to do that. If he can do that, that I think is the ultimate difference maker in this situation, and that's what could really open up this offense. He's got to be committed to it, though.
Well, one of the things, and we don't want to talk about this yet, but if the Philadelphia ends up getting bounced, do you have to make another move at offensive coordinator? Like, this is something that they change coordinators over and over and over again. Do you have to do it again? We'll see if Philadelphia loses. We might bring that up next week. Q Myers game night, weeknights at 10 on 97.3 ESPN. Let's take a look at some of the other ones. Rams and Panthers. Now, these two teams just played a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
L.A. had to travel to Carolina. They lost that game. Yet are a big double-digit favorite here. Is this a sneaky spot, or the Rams well prepared this time?
I think the Rams are well prepared this time. This is one of those games that is probably the least of the exciting ones for me this weekend, right? I mean, I kind of look at it like I think the Rams, similar to the Eagles, have been there, done that. They understand what this time of year is all about. And the Panthers had to backdoor their way into the playoffs, right? I mean, they didn't just go out there and get it done when they had the opportunity to. Tampa Bay won that game. They just, happened to get, the benefit of their, terrible division. And, they obviously had Atlanta handle their business in against New Orleans. And so that's what ultimately ended up happening. So they got into the playoffs. So I just think that the Rams are the better team here. I think Devontae Adams will be back and be that factor in the red zone for Matthew Stafford. I just can't see the Panthers beating the Rams twice. So we'll see how it all plays out. Maybe I'll come back and say, hey, I was disrespectful to the Panthers, but it was nice that they made it to the postseason, nice that they won their division, but I think that's where it ends.
All right, Packers at Bears. This is an interesting one.
Yeah.
So Packers were in Chicago a couple of weeks ago. They have that game won. Bears get an onside kick and some wonky stuff to lead up to the onside kick. If the Bears would have lost that game, they'd be entering the playoffs on a 3-game losing streak. They gave up 42 to the Niners, Q, and then barely could move the ball last week against Detroit. Do we fear the Bears are out of gas? The Packers have been banged up. What's our read on this one?
That's the interesting thing about this. I don't think that the Bears are set to make a deep run. I think the first year, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams together, this has been really good, right? But there's been times where we haven't seen Caleb Williams play at the level that he needs to. He's been very inconsistent, but, when it comes to playing some backyard football and making some plays when he needs to, when the team needs it the most, he's been able to come through. I think this is a statement game for both these quarterbacks, to be honest. I think Caleb Williams and Jordan Love have a lot to prove in this game. Jordan Love, I think there's still question marks out there. Is this guy the true franchise quarterback? I know he's paid like him, and I know he has moments where like, wow, that dude is amazing. And then he has moments where it's like, wow, what is that dude doing? You know what I mean? It's just it's really interesting with him. So I just think that this is going to be one of those games. I'm excited to watch it to see what quarterback is going to step up. If I was putting money on it right now, I'd say that the Packers are going to win this game. I'd say that Jordan Love is going to rise to the occasion. But right when I say that means that the Packers have a 7-point lead, and here come the Bears and find a way to come back and win like they've done more times than not this year.
That would send the Packers to Seattle, and the winner of the Rams-Panthers game could possibly be in Philadelphia if Philly beats San Francisco. All right, Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock, Bills and Jags. I mean, this is it for the Bills, right? No Mahomes, no Lamar Jackson. You got the Jaguars sitting here as the home team. Can Buffalo go on the road to Jacksonville, though, or is this Jags team, is it just their time?
This has got to be Buffalo's time, right? I mean,
right?
You just rolled it out there why this has to be their time. And if Buffalo blows it now, there's this guy out there that's available as a head coach named John Harbaugh. You might be looking at a new head coach in Buffalo, right? And I'm just throwing it out there because Sean McDermott, this is your time to shine. The Jacksonville Jaguars have had a really good season year one with Liam Cohen. But if they all of a sudden knock off Buffalo, who all they've been doing is waiting for Kansas City to not be in their way, wait for Baltimore to not be in their way, neither one of those teams are in their way. If they can't capitalize now, they're already still a little shell-shocked because they didn't win the division, right? Some team named the Patriots stepped up and was like, no, we got this. Don't worry about it. You don't have to win the division. We got this. They're already shell-shocked there. If they can't get past Jacksonville, and again, Jacksonville's been playing some really good ball, so I don't want to discredit them. But this shouldn't be their time. This should be Buffalo's time. And if it's not, I really think you start to look at Sean McDermott and see what's going on with him next year, because I don't think he'll be on the sidelines with Buffalo.
All right, Q Myers, game night tonight at 10. They'll talk more about these games. Chargers, Patriots, Patriots, are they the team like the Bears who are just here, first time, welcome aboard? Chargers on the road, got to travel across the country, or is it the Patriots who come into the playoffs for that first time, similar to like Burrow a couple of years ago and goes all the way to the Super Bowl?
I just think the Patriots will get past the Chargers. And I don't trust Justin Herbert and what he's looked like. I still think he's affected by that hand that he had to have surgery on. And I just don't think it's sitting right with them. They got off to such a hot start to start the season, but then you saw them fizzle out a little bit, and they showed their warts. And so I don't think that they're where they need to be. The offensive line is still suspect. Running game still not where it needs to be. Defense is good. I'll give them that. The Jesse Minter does a heck of a job there. So I'll give them that. But I just think the Patriots are going to get past them. I don't expect New England to make a deep run, but I expect them to get past the Chargers. And I think we'll go into the offseason again talking about, can Justin Herbert get it done when it matters the most in the playoffs, right? The same conversation we have around Josh Allen, same conversation we have around Lamar Jackson. The only thing is he's not a league MVP, but he hasn't got it done in the postseason. We remember him having a big lead, and then we remember him throwing multiple interceptions in the postseason. So he's got to find a way to get it done, but I don't think it's going to be this year.
All right, your last game is Texans-Steelers. The Steelers obviously needed all these things to happen, a missed field goal. The Texans' defense, obviously
Yes.
that's what they're known for. Their defense could travel. This game should be a fun Monday nighter.
It should. Look, the Steelers don't lose on Monday Night Football. Mike Tomlin doesn't lose on Monday nights, right? He's not that guy. But the Texans' defense is incredible. And based off what we saw on Sunday night against Baltimore, that offense of the Steelers didn't do anything to worry me. Like, I didn't get concerned about that. If I'm the Texans, I'm watching that like, yeah, okay, we can slow this thing down. I know they get DK Metcalf back, but okay, I'm not worried about that. They've got two bloodthirsty Pirates that are coming off the edges trying to get after Aaron Rodgers, and I think they're going to make his life miserable. That Steelers offensive line is going to be under stress and strain all night long. I think the Texans go into Pittsburgh, get the W. They got a championship defense. Now, their offense is going to have to show up, and they're playing. It's going to be cold, right? So that might affect them a little bit, but that defense is championship built, and I would not be shocked if the Texans knock off the Steelers at all. And really, honestly, Mike, it not even really be a close game.
All right, Q Myers, let's get a little offseason coaching carousel here. Harbaugh fired yesterday. I said earlier today, I think half the teams in the league should be calling, whether they have a coach or not. There are so many teams that are stuck in the middle or wherever and just need a culture change. If I'm, I don't know, Dallas, Washington, even like Detroit,
right?
I'm calling and saying I need to get that guy to get me over the top. He would be the top guy out there. You're in Vegas. You need a coach. Is this a guy you want there, or is there somebody else that you think is a better option?
I don't think he's a good fit in Vegas. And I mean, I think he's a good fit anywhere, but with what the Raiders are trying to do, and Mark Davis put a statement out that GM John Spytek and Tom Brady are going to take over football operations. I think that John Harbaugh wants too much control. Right, he's one of those coaches that's earned that. 18 years at the same organization, 12th winningest coach, whatever, 193 wins. I think he's going to want too much control, and I don't think that's the path that the Raiders want to go. But you're absolutely right. Half the league, if you have a coach or not, should be interested. I wouldn't say Detroit. I think Detroit is fine with Dan Campbell. They've got to figure out their assistant coaches, their offensive coordinator, stuff like that. They've got to work on that. I think they'll work that out in the offseason. But, if you're the Jets and you still have Aaron Glenn, I would probably think about moving on from him. If you're the Dolphins and you have
the Dolphins, I was going to say Dolphins,
moving on from him. And like I mentioned, man, if the Bills they lose this game, I'm Sean McDermott. Bye. I'll pull the U-Haul truck up for you, man. You know what I mean? Like if I'm the Bills, I'm putting a full court press, and that's why I think it's so important for teams like the Giants that I think are favorites to get Harbaugh, that they hurry up and get that done as quick as possible, because they don't want one of these teams that currently have a coach to decide that thanks but no thanks, let's go after that guy. So there's some teams out there that have coaches that those coaches should be a little bit worried.
I'll tell you what, if I'm Cincinnati, I am going to say to Zach Taylor, thanks for playing. I got to bring in a guy who will change the culture of this place. I might do the same thing in Indianapolis. I know Steichen, they had a lot of injury problems with the quarterback, but I'd probably say, listen, we got to get somebody else. I would do the same thing in Washington. You mentioned Detroit. I mean, you said no in Detroit. I think Campbell's just one of those guys. He's a rah-rah, yes, and sometimes that's great. but you have a chance to get a guy who can elevate you to the next level there, I probably make that move. I think every single team in the NFC South, maybe outside of Carolina, they just hired Canales. If I'm Tampa, Atlanta, maybe not New Orleans. Kellen Moore did a good job there this year. Certainly Arizona if I'm them. I got to imagine that every one of these teams has to at least kick the tires there. But I was a little surprised by the fact that they ended up moving on from him. But I kind of think it's the right move for Baltimore.
Yeah, I don't know what was the worst situation there in Baltimore. I don't know if John Harbaugh failed Lamar Jackson or if Lamar Jackson, as a two-time league MVP, failed John Harbaugh. I just don't know.
I feel like he's the wrong personality for what would bring the best. And that's crazy to say because Lamar's won a lot of MVPs and been great. But I still feel like there's more there.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if you can get more out of Lamar or Lamar has to get more out of himself. You know what I mean? That's my biggest
felt the relationship had to change.
Yes, exactly. But I also don't know. And when we start reading reports that are coming out of the building there in Baltimore about Lamar Jackson staying up all night, playing video games, falling asleep in meetings. And I don't know how much attention to detail there is on his part. I know he's a natural talent. He's one of the best in the league. You can't find a Lamar Jackson, just anywhere. You just can't, just go pluck one out of the draft and say, yeah, you're going to be Lamar Jackson. But how much does Lamar Jackson want to take his game from being a 10 to being a 15? You know what I mean? And is he doing the necessary work? How much availability did he not have this year? Yeah. How many times did we see on Wednesday, Lamar's not practicing again? Lamar's not practicing again. At some point, man, you've got to be available.
The whole thing last year, him sitting out most of the end of the year. The year before that.
You're only going to go as far as your best player. And if your best player is not available, what makes the guy that's not the best player be available?
Q Myers, game night, 10 o'clock, 97.3 ESPN. The playoffs are here. You can listen to them on 97.3 ESPN. We got the Eagles and not the Raiders. The Eagles and the Niners will be playing on Sunday. You can listen to that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, man, I'll see you soon.
All right, brother, appreciate you.
There is Q Myers. And, of course, you can listen to him right here on 97.3 ESPN. That is a 10 o'clock for Q Myers tonight. All right, coming up next hour, we got a lot on the playoffs. I want to talk about the games. Phillies, Sixers tonight. They're going to get back. It looks like Kelly Oubre, Trendon Watford, and Joel Embiid will play tonight. It looks like they're all probable at least. So you got that tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up, NFL playoffs are here. We'll break down all the matchups, get thoughts on that. Stick around. Text board's open. We'll update the poll question. And still waiting to see what's going to happen with JT Realmuto. We were talking about that in the first hour with Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. All right, more Sports Bash all the way. Don't forget, tomorrow we're live at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City. So stop out if you haven't been out there for a little lunch. More Sports Bash next, 97.3 ESPN. At 501 Sports Bash, having some fun in the 5 o'clock hour, brought to you by Jersey Cal. It's a year-long thing. Ice cream in Northfield, Absecon, Brigantine. Best ice cream at Jersey Cal. Probably get some ice cream. It's going to be like 55 degrees tomorrow.
Yeah, it's the perfect day to go get some Jersey Cal ice cream.
I mean, I'll have ice cream in 10 degree, 20 degree, 5 degree, but 55 degree. I left my house today, went outside, and I was like, it is warm out. Not that I was complaining, but it was nice. And then I got in here. It's like people always like say they watch on YouTube. I'm always wearing a vest a lot because it's cold in here. So
you know me, I always get this.
And I'm not complaining about it being cold. It's chillier in here
than it is outside.
A lot of times. But we like it cold in the room. That's why I'm always kind of wearing the vest.
Hey, it's always better to
here.
be a little cool in this room than sweating.
The alternative is brutal.
Yeah, we had that several years ago. Before they fixed our air system in here, for those who don't know, and we used to sweat to death in here.
Yeah, there was somebody who used to work here. We'd have like air conditioning wars. We would turn it on, they would turn it off.
Or then they would crank it up too much, then we had to crank it back down to balance it out.
Like sweating us out of here.
There was one point that guy actually locked the screen, and I had to figure out how to unlock it.
All right, it's NFL Fine 5, Ugly 5, 5 best, 5 worst teams in the playoffs. And then, of course, you do have 14 teams in. So we'll kind of rank the teams. 5 best, 5 worst teams in the playoffs. This is really hard. I mean, the 2-1 seeds, are we even sure they're the best 2 teams?
That's what I was going to say. I'm not even sure if the 2-1 seeds are the best teams in their conferences.
It is like you're looking at, I think the worst team, if I'm going from the bottom up, the worst team is Carolina.
I was going to say, I would assume it'd be Carolina just because they're like the team that accidentally came to the dance.
I mean, and it's not strictly because they're 8-9. I don't really care what your record is. Your record, I mean, to me, they're just,
Well, first of all, they probably have the worst quarterback of all the teams, right?
It's another interesting question. If you were to rank the NFC quarterbacks.
If I'm ranking the NFC quarterbacks, my number 1 quarterback would probably be Matthew Stafford, right? I mean, he was
Stafford or Hurts.
Stafford's a borderline MVP candidate this year. Then you go Hurts because he's Super Bowl MVP, and then number 3. 3's hard because do you give?
It's not a deep quarterback field. That's the thing about the playoffs this year. You're not going up against like these heavy-hitting quarterbacks.
In either conference.
No, on both sides. I would go Purdy 3.
I'm leaning Purdy 3, and I would probably go you go Sam Darnold 4 or Caleb Williams.
Or Jordan Love.
Jordan Love I got problems with. He's been injured so much this year. I don't even know how effective he is anymore.
I mean, but all of them have questions. Caleb Love I don't love. Caleb Williams I don't love. Jordan Love I don't love. Sam Darnold has had the best,
season. 2
seasons back-to-back, but then he's also had his moments where he has come up small, including this year in big games. He had that primetime game where there was a big game for them, and he played terrible.
Right, so it's like I don't look at Sam Darnold as a guy I depend on. So I guess after you go Stafford, Hurts, Purdy, I mean, do you go with Love just because he's been to the postseason before?
I guess he's playing, but it's not even like he's been out for 3 weeks?
Well, he's been out multiple times this year. He's had the shoulder, the concussion, the rib. He's all banged up. He's almost like Baker Mayfield at the end of this year, where it's like he's just hanging on until the end of the year.
He didn't even make it to the end of the year. Hanging on to the end of the year? No, he's not hanging on to anything. He didn't play the last 3 weeks. He hopefully for them he's going to be back this week for the playoffs against the Bears. Now, if you're just saying talent-wise, Caleb Williams. Although, don't forget, Sam Darnold was the 3rd pick in the draft.
Yeah, but Caleb Williams has got he has a skill set.
Bryce Young was the 1st pick in the draft, by the way.
What's up?
Bryce Young was also the 1st pick. And so you got Caleb Williams, the 1st pick.
Yes.
Bryce Young, the 1st pick.
Yep.
Matthew Stafford was the 1st pick. Sam Darnold was the third pick. So you got some high draft choices on the NFC side.
I totally understand that. I just think that there's a huge talent difference between what Darnold did as what he can do.
I don't trust any of the three.
But if you had to pick
if
one.
I had to pick one, my rankings would be Stafford, Hurts,
Purdy.
Those three, I agree. Then I would probably go Caleb Williams, and I'm not a Caleb Williams guy at all, but I will take his potential. Darnold, Love, Young.
Yeah. I think everyone can agree that Bryce Young is the bottom. And you mentioned how Bryce Young was the first overall pick. Me and Andy McNamara were having this conversation this weekend on Hanging with Hennick here on 97.3 ESPN about how Bryce Young was drafted number one for all the wrong reasons. He wasn't drafted number one overall because he was the best player. He was drafted number one overall because he was a great interview. He's a smart kid, a nice guy. He was someone who could memorize the playbook. Like, he wasn't drafted because he could play the quarterback position. He got drafted because he interviewed well. Like that. Like, you got to have a little bit more than be a nice guy in an interview.
He's had some moments this year, but those moments also get overshadowed by the bad moments that he's had. On the AFC side,
Josh Allen's obviously number one.
Josh Allen would be one. I guess Drake May would be two if you're just going off of this year.
Or do you go Trevor Lawrence because he's had it in fuego last 6 weeks?
Drake May is going to win the MVP.
He shouldn't, but.
Regardless. Okay, then he's number two in the MVP. Trevor Lawrence isn't.
No, I just think that Trevor Lawrence finished the year very strong.
He finished strong. Drake May was great all year. Finishing strong versus all year.
So you're saying Josh Allen,
Drake May, by the way, threw for 4,400 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. And he completed 72% of his passes.
So you're saying Allen, May, then who? I mean, I would go Lawrence, but I can see you could make an argument if you wanted for Justin Herbert.
I was going to say, I'm not the biggest Herbert. I feel like Herbert's a little over. Lawrence, by the way, threw for 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He also ran for 359 and had 9 touchdowns. So he adds that element, as does Herbert, too, by the way. Him and Herbert are kind of similar type of.
Right. So if you had to pick between Lawrence and Herbert.
Herbert has been to the playoffs. So is Lawrence, by the way. They
Lawrence
had that
is a playoff
run
window.
a couple of years ago. Herbert this year threw for 3,700 yards, 26 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. He also ran for almost 500 yards, 2 touchdowns. So those guys, very similar. I might take Lawrence, though, because Herbert just seeming like has constantly failed in these games. Like, he does not have a signature victory.
He's never won a playoff game.
Allen.
May.
Then
Lawrence.
Herbert.
And then Stroud.
Well, I got to
Knicks.
Figure that Aaron Rodgers has got to be ahead of those guys.
Are you going based on his play this year or his pedigree?
Listen, he was not Aaron Rodgers, but you can make a strong argument that they won 10 games this year. You can make a strong argument that's not a playoff team without him.
That's very true.
I mean, he didn't have a great year, but he still threw for 3,300 yards, 24 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. I mean, so, he was not Aaron Rodgers, but like the game the other night, he makes a couple big throws in that game. Do I trust him more than I trust Bo Nix?
Yes.
Probably. C.J. Stroud, I'm kind of disappointed from where he was as a rookie to where he is now in his 3rd season. He had a decent year this year, 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I know he missed like 3 or 4 games, but, I don't think that I trust C.J. Stroud.
So really quick,
I trust their defense.
So back to the Aaron Rodgers thing. If you got to win a game tomorrow, Rodgers or Herbert?
Probably. This Rodgers?
This Rodgers. And this Herbert.
Probably Rodgers. Herbert's got that hand problem still.
So is it possible that it's actually Josh Allen, Drake May, Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers, then Justin Herbert?
Though, I will say, the one thing I do like about Herbert is he can make, like against the Eagles, he can make a play with his legs.
He's a competitor. I like that about him. I like the fact that he tries to win at all costs. He's got a little bit of that John Elway.
He's a competitor, yes. Now, by the way, Bo Nix this year, almost 4,000 yards.
Yes.
25 touch, 11 interceptions, 350 rushing, 5 rushing touchdowns. I mean, I didn't realize he almost threw for 4,000 yards. He only completed 63% of his passes. That's where he bothers me. He's not the most accurate guy. He's a
boomer bust guy. He either has a really good game or a mega
4,000 yards.
Yeah, because he had like 6 or 7 big games.
Would not have pegged him at that level. I would have figured he would have been closer to 3,000 yards, maybe like a 3,200 guy. He still would probably be, I almost would say, last on this list.
See, I'm thinking that Stroud should be last. And then Nick's
I don't have a problem with that. I'm saying one of those two guys, Nick, Stroud, Nick.
Because to me, the problem with Stroud is Stroud had a horrible first half of the year. And then all of a sudden started playing better the second half of the year, which makes me feel like, can I trust him? Can I trust the guy who half the year looked like he shouldn't be starting in the NFL anymore? And the other half of the year, it looks like he...
Hey, listen, I won't argue with that. I had Stroud when he was a rookie. He was in the MVP conversation.
Correct.
Fell out. Last year fell apart. And this year has been good, not great.
Exactly.
Now, the seedings, you got Denver, New England, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, Houston, Buffalo, Chargers. In the AFC, I do think Denver's probably the best team.
Denver has a great defense. They have a really good offensive line. And I think that as long as Bo Nix does what he's told by Sean Payton, they're probably going to be in a position to win every single game.
14-3. They seem to find ways to win these games. I'm wondering, because people forget, they did make the playoffs last year.
They did.
So it's not like this is like they came out of nowhere here. They made the playoffs last year.
They just took a big step up this year.
And a lot of times there are teams that you just don't believe in. Who do you believe in more? If one of the 1 seeds make it to the Super Bowl, is it Denver or Seattle?
Oh, absolutely Denver. 100%.
They're very similar.
Yeah, but I think there's a huge difference.
Both have really, really good defenses, questionable quarterback. You got Sean Payton.
But that's the difference.
Commodity.
Sean Payton has been to a Super Bowl. He has been to multiple conference championship games. And I feel like I trust Sean Payton in Bo Nix's ear more than I trust Clint Kubiak in Sam Darnold's ear.
And playing in Seattle, very difficult.
It is.
Playing in Denver, very difficult. You got that going for both of those teams.
You do.
They both have tremendous home field advantages. So if you were doing Find 5, are either one of those teams, are they your number 1 and 2?
Seattle is not my 1 or 2. But Denver can be in the conversation with 1 or 2.
Do you like New England or Seattle?
New England.
All right.
I like the quarterback better. I like the coach better. I like the variables better.
I would imagine.
It's a shame because Seattle has a great defense.
You do. Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville, they're interesting because they really came out of nowhere.
They surged. They started the year sluggish. Trevor Lawrence had a rough start to the year. And
they
then
lost to Seattle, by the way, at home.
Yeah.
They lost to the Rams at home. They lost to the Texans on the road. And that's it. I mean, their other loss was the Bengals when Burrow was playing. But that's their losses this year. At Cincinnati, home against Seattle, home against the Rams, at Houston.
But they also have big wins. They won at Denver. They won at Kansas City. They're a team that came on strong in November and December.
Yeah, they finished the season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight wins. You mentioned the game at Denver is their most impressive win. So does that game at Denver, and that game 34-20, that's a good statement win. Is that enough to say that Jacksonville should be in this conversation?
I think so. But I think the biggest problem I have with Jacksonville is I think their defense is a little overrated. I think that the games their defense has performed well in was kind of like smoke and mirrors.
They're interesting because they don't have like I mean, Lawrence was the number 1 pick in the draft, so they do have that.
Right.
And he has been up and down throughout his career.
Correct.
ETN's a weapon.
Big-time weapon.
You don't have that stud wideout. They got a bunch of guys.
Jacoby Myers has played well for them. I will give him credit. He has stepped up for them in a lot of these games. I think that if they didn't have him, they wouldn't have won.
Now you're in a playoff situation. You're going with Brian Thomas Jr. and Parker Washington led them in yards this year.
Yeah, but Jacoby Myers has become the number 1 guy ever since they acquired him.
Yeah, once they got him, he's played 9 games.
Now, I will say, remember they had Travis
Hunter.
Travis Hunter to begin the year. Now he's out for the whole year. So you wonder.
And this team, he was what, the 2nd, 3rd pick in the draft?
Hunter? Yeah, 2nd or 3rd pick. I don't remember exactly.
They won 13 games without the 3rd pick in the draft or whatever he was.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, imagine what they would do if they had him. And I think you would feel more confident in them if they had Hunter, right?
Well, with the receiving core that they have, yes. That's where I think they lack, is in the playoffs 4 straight. This is what I was talking about earlier. 4 straight weeks, if you're San Francisco with Shanahan and your coach is an offensive mind, your offense has to be clicking for 4 straight weeks.
Or you have to get lucky.
Exactly. You win a shootout, 42-38, something to that effect. But what if it's the week where your offense scores 3, where your offense just doesn't come to play? I would go, now Pittsburgh, you like Pittsburgh would be last, right? On the AFC side.
I mean, they're last just because their roster is so clunkily put together. But you're telling me the game is tied 13-13 heading into the 4th quarter, and then Renegade hits in that building?
Just don't love their offense. I mean, as much as we just talked about Rodgers, I mean, they just don't have.
I know.
Metcalf back. He should be back, right?
Yeah, he should be back. By the way, the Texans, we should note, they are probably the best defensive football. So you have the best defensive football going on the road to Pittsburgh versus a future Hall of Famer.
That's the Monday night game.
And that's why the game is so interesting, because it's do you believe in Rodgers' magic or do you believe that defense travels?
On the NFC side, I couldn't give you to me, is Seattle the number 1 team? I don't have a problem with that. If you told me, I don't think the Bears are the 2nd best team.
They're not.
And I like the Bears. I just think they're out of gas. I think they're done. I think they're so vulnerable. By the way, it's supposed to snow in Chicago this weekend.
And by the way, you mentioned vulnerable. They've lost 2 straight games to end the year. They have not.
Well, I've talked a lot about this. They really should have lost 3 straight. They should have lost that game against Green Bay a couple of weeks ago.
They should have, yes. But then the 49ers game, the 49ers took it to him. They roughed him up. And then Dan Campbell basically said, we're going to rough you up even more.
And I talked about this. They lost 2. The Packer game, they needed an onside kick. They kicked the crap out of the Browns. The week before that, they lost to the Packers. They would have lost 4 out of 5 to end the season here. That's telling me that they're kind of running out of gas here.
Yeah, and
defense isn't great. Solid, not great.
They're injured though. They are without one of their starting linebackers for the rest of the year.
Hey, he's not coming back.
Yes.
I'm saying it's part of why their defense is just okay. Now you would say, well, Philadelphia, they shut them down. Philly was terrible that day. This isn't like, hey, Philly's offense stinks.
The play caller's horrible for Philly. A real play caller can score on Chicago.
The play caller is bad. The Philly play caller, Patullo's terrible, okay? And I'm not a big blame the coach guy and this, but I'm growing into that direction for a couple of reasons. And I'm not even blaming Patullo. He's not even number 1 on my list. It's still the offensive line not being healthy that I find to be the biggest problem for Philadelphia.
Right.
Because if Kevin Patullo has what every other coordinator had, we talked about this with Mosher earlier. DeAndre Swift goes for 1,000 yards. Miles Sanders had 1,500 yards when he was here. They could run the ball with whoever they had back there. Barkley has 1,000 yards, which I'm actually shocked that he got to 1,000 behind this offensive line. He can't call the offense the way that it's designed to be called because their offensive line stinks. Now, that being said, okay, I can't run the ball the way that every other coordinator has got to run the ball here. I got to be able to throw the ball better than what I'm doing here. Okay, I can't run. I can throw. I have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. I have to be able to be more effective in the pass game. Have to be. I cannot justify that this passing game. I can justify the running game being a problem. The line's just not, there's nothing there.
Right, you have a tangible reason why.
There's nothing in the passing game. Never. There's just nothing there. They chuck it up. They throw the ball down the field. And if it happens to land in it, that's their offense.
And it's ridiculous because Patullo's background is as the
pass game coordinator.
Exactly.
And this is something interesting that we were talking about this. Patullo has been on the staff here
for 5 years.
It's not like they found this guy and said, hey, he's great in some – he's been here. So I don't think the guy's an idiot. Like, that's not fair to just say the guy's an idiot. He's been here. He's had a role here. He's been the pass game coordinator here. Now, I remember talking about this back when they named him. I was wondering, with him being a pass game coordinator, if he was going to lean on the pass a little bit more because that's his background.
Right.
I don't know what the hell he's leaned on.
He hasn't – I don't think he knows what he's leaning on, and that's the problem.
I would say this, okay? If you are fine 5, ugly 5, we're just kind of spitballing things that we like and don't like for the playoff teams. If you were looking at these teams, fine 5, ugly 5, the Eagles have the worst offense of all the teams.
Statistically, yeah.
What offense do you like worse than this, less than this one? Right now, by
Texans,
the way.
Maybe.
Hold on. Total yards per game. Philly 311, Pittsburgh 305, Carolina 295. Those are playoff teams actually behind Philadelphia. So every other team in the playoffs.
In total yards.
In total yards. Now, points per game. Philadelphia. Carolina scores 18 a game. That's the worst of the playoff teams. Then the Chargers, 21.6. They've had a lot of offensive line issues.
More than Philadelphia has.
And Philadelphia's next at 22.3. The Giants score more points a game than Philly does.
That's right.
Pittsburgh, more points a game than Philly. Pittsburgh, more. Houston, more. Cincinnati, who, by the way, Burrow missed more than half the year. They score more. Baltimore more. San Francisco. I mean, every team, Philly, the only playoff teams that score less than Philly are the Chargers, Carolina. And you're talking about the Chargers played with basically 5 backup linemen the entire year. Philly hasn't had that problem at all.
Yeah.
They've had 4 offensive linemen play virtually the entire season for them.
And that's why it goes back to the conversation you had earlier in the show, which is if this team doesn't make a deep run, everyone is going to point to Kevin Patullo. Because the only way this team doesn't make a run is if Kevin Patullo basically continues to be a failure.
All right, when we come back, Nick Sirianni talking today. Lane Johnson, will he be in the lineup or not? You'll hear what Nick says about that on the other side. We got the Nick Sirianni midweek presser as he brought up a lot of interesting things. He was asked about Kevin Patullo as the play caller. What does he think? You'll hear what he had to say about that. That's coming up next. This is the Sports Bash Live. We are brought to you this hour by Jersey Cow. It's a year-long thing in Northfield, Absecon, and Brigantine. The best ice cream is at Jersey Cow. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. At 5:32, Nick Sirianni in just a couple of moments. The Eagles injury report just released. DNP for Grant Calcaterra, Brett Toth, both did not practice today. Limited, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, Marcus Epps, Dallas Goedert, Lane Johnson back on the field today. The team opened the 21-day practice window for Azeez Ojulari, who was a full participant today, and Jalen Phillips. Ojulari has been out with a hamstring problem. Phillips back as a full participant. That's good to hear. A lot of guys limited today. Jalen Carter, we would anticipate he plays, although it's not shoulders, it's hip for him. Dean with the hamstring, Marcus Epps concussion, Dallas Goedert knee, and Lane Johnson with that Liz Frank foot injury. Here's what head coach Nick Sirianni had to say about his team getting ready for the 49ers.
At one point, this was kind of like a budding rivalry, a couple emotional games a couple years ago. Obviously, a bunch of different faces on both teams, but from the core level, the 49ers have a bunch of similar faces, from Shanahan to Lynch to Purdy to McCaffrey, etc. What can you say about just what that group has accomplished? Obviously, they haven't won the biggest game, but what they've accomplished in your history with preparing against them, I should say.
Yeah, I have so much respect for this football team. They've had sustained success. Kyle's done an unbelievable job there, and a ton of respect for him and then their players. There is a lot of familiar faces. There are a bunch of guys that are really good players, which is why they're still playing there. And so can't tell you how much respect I have for this football team. You can see how well coached they are. You can see, again, how talented their players are. You see how hard they play, physical, fundamentally sound. So, I can't say enough about, this team. And, we got to do what the things that we know we need to do to be able to go in there and have success.
Do you have a sense yet of how much that rest will help some of your offensive linemen, and how much can that help if they're?
I think anytime they get some time off, that definitely helps. That's why we decided to do what we did last week. And so, again, it's a long season, marathon of a season. There's still going to be bumps and bruises that guys are going to have to deal with. That you feel your best the day one of training camp usually, and then these guys are warriors. They battle through things throughout the entire year, and looking forward to getting back out at practice today and working.
Nick, what do you think clicked for your defensive line maybe halfway through the season? And
I'm sorry, start that again.
What do you think clicked for your D-line? Maybe it's like halfway through the season, the production really increased. What do you think went into that?
Yeah, you're on this quest of in this journey of getting better. Your block destruction gets better, your tackling gets better with the amount of time that you spend working on it. And so that's your goal, is continue to try to play better each week, try to play the best football you can by the end of the year. And it's just the daily grind and the commitment to getting better each day with the work that you put in the classroom, the work that you put in, on the practice field, and then the games that you play every Sunday, or Monday, or Thursday, or Friday, or Saturday.
Saquon had verbalized at times wanting to stop the negative plays from his perspective and do what he can do. How do you think he progressed, talking about the defensive line, how do you think he progressed going on when he sort of verbalized that?
Yeah, obviously Saquon's a phenomenal back, and he's going to continue to get better as the season goes on. And we did a lot as a staff to help out with that. Obviously, execution being better, right? Everything plays into it, and then obviously Saquon, getting the muddy yards that are there. I think about the Washington game a couple weeks ago, that run, 5-yard run. He just kept driving his legs, and then there's runs that are 3-yard runs, even they're 2-yard runs that you're like, man, that was a good gritty run, even though you want to get 4+ each carry. But I think he's done a nice job with that.
You were Nick years ago. Prepared for him. Now you're preparing for him again. How have you seen, over this last 2 years, how have you seen his progress?
Yeah, again, I just think he's a winner. He's won everywhere he's went, and really good football player. Does a really good job with the system that they run. Has the ability to extend plays. Has the ability to find guys that are open and find the right receiver. tough. He's tough. So there's a reason they've been, obviously all the really good players they have and good coaching that they have is why they've had sustained success, but they've had a really steady quarterback through that time as well.
Nick, you were once a first-time play caller. What are the challenges doing it for the first time, and have you seen some of them countered by Kevin, and how's he dealt with things overall?
Yeah, obviously there's always adjustments, and as you go through, I thought he's done a nice job of handling everything that's come his way, staying mentally sharp and staying mentally tough. Because I know there's always going to be criticism, and you're probably not as the offense coordinator, you might not get as much praise, but you're always going to get some criticism, and but I think he's done a nice job handling that, and I think that. We've done some really good things, and we're getting better as the season goes through. We got to be even more consistent, and obviously there's always times coming out of every game. There's going to be calls you want back. Players are going to have plays that you want back. I'm going to have decisions that we talk through or throughout the week or during the game that I'm going to want back, and that's the nature of this thing.
When you're game planning offensively, how much of it and how do you balance it? Doing what you want to do versus being reactive to what you're seeing defensively. What have you found works better?
Yeah, you have to have an identity of what you want to do. I think it starts with that, is having an identity, but that's also, there's a fine line there too, is like, hey, I want to run this because this is part of our identity. Well, you might have to do some different things to get out of some, hey, okay, well, maybe we don't run it versus this, or maybe we don't run it versus that, because you're setting yourself up and you're not for a bad play potentially. But I think it always starts with an identity. I think the best teams are always going to have an identity that they rest on, and that's what we've been trying to continue to accomplish throughout this year. And we know we know a lot of the things that we're good at and that we want to continue to try to press. But they're watching tape too, and they're gonna have answers for that. And so there are things that you can call and run, and there's some things that part of your identity that you call on your terms, and you have both of those things as you going through.
Do you think you found the identity?
I do. I think we are continuing to get better through that, and I think that it's shown in these last some of these last games. And obviously, Buffalo, we had a bad half. Where we didn't do a good enough job at coaching. We didn't do a good enough job playing. But I think we have.
In the red zone, you've been so efficient. Just when it comes to the open field, what are the differences in finding that efficiency? Are you able to attack more in those and get what you want in the red zone? And are there? It's a similar deal, right? Again, you want to have identity in the red zone. You want to have identity in the field. You want to be able to attack also what they're doing in those moments as well. Obviously a shorter field. First down either gets you a touchdown or continues your drive. And so, there's elements of how you attack and how you go about, trying to be efficient on both. Again, you always want to be moving the ball forward. When you get behind the sticks in the red zone and you're 2nd and 11 or 2nd and 9, that's hard to score. Well, it's the same thing in the field. When you get yourself behind the sticks, that makes it more difficult. That's why sacks, when you look at sacks or you look at negative plays, they tend to stall drives out. And when you have a lack of an explosive, they tend to. So it's always about staying ahead of the sticks. Obviously, different forms of ways to attack in the red zone, whether it's going for the end zone, whether it's checking it down, whether it's different things like that. But yeah.
Spent 5 years praising Lane Johnson. Now, what changes in the times that he's on the field? Is there a sense of confidence among the teammates? Do you call the game differently? What specifically about him changes the offense?
Yeah, one thing that's great about this league are all the the great players that that you guys get to watch, we get to coach, we get to scout, we get to game plan against. That's such a cool part of this league. I can't tell you how many times I'm watching tape and I'm like, watching something yesterday and Arizona tight end catches a ball. I'm like, man, this guy's a good player. Or, something happens. I'm trying to think who else I said that about. Like Bosa, I'm like, man, this guy's a good player. Whoever it may be. And that's such a cool thing about this game because, Yeah, but obviously Lane's a big difference maker, and I know he's working like crazy to get himself back, and we'll see where that is this week. And but he's a difference maker. He's one of the best that.
Difference maker at that position.
He's one of the best that's ever done it. Yeah, again, I think I kind of get it too much into scheme with that, but he allows you to do some different things. But again, Fred's done a nice job when he's came in and played for him. We've won a lot of games with Fred in the lineup. But yeah, Lane is just a difference maker, and it affects it can affect everything. So there's a reason he's going to the Hall of Fame. There's a reason he's going to be in the Eagles Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's one of the best ever to do it at that position, and he shows that year and out through. I don't even know what year he's in now at this point. I've been with him for 5 years, and he just keeps getting better. 13. So, and I just been with him 5 years, and it feels like he just keeps getting better and better, which is a testament to Lane and how he takes care of his body and how he trains and how he mentally approaches this game of football that he loves. So, man, I could go on all day about him.
Going into the second playoffs. When it comes to Saquon, his carries are down a good deal from last year. Was that a conscious decision on your part when the season began, and B, how fresh do you see him going?
I think sometimes that's just the flow of games, the way things go sometimes. I know sometimes last year he was out early. Obviously our run game hasn't been as efficient as it was last year, so sometimes you get a little less carries there because you're doing other things with it. So, but yeah, all things I'm excited about where we go forward, and how he's feeling, and excited about this week.
Going into your second playoffs with Vic Fangio as your defensive coordinator, how much does that experience help in these playoffs? But also, how have you seen him evolve in his job?
Yeah, like I said about Vic in the past, he's had so much success for decades in the NFL, and so you don't have that if you're just stuck in one mode all the time. He's constantly evolving. He's constantly his defenses are different than when he first started calling defenses, and so he's just always evolving. Loves this game, and works his butt off to put the guys in the best positions that they possibly can be in. And so yeah, I'm just glad he's our defensive coordinator, and he's been a big big reason for why we've had the success that we've had.
Could you talk about
just maintaining that edge coming off the Super Bowl win, and how has it motivated you to kind of maintain a chip yourself coming off a win?
Yeah, you're always judged in this league by your last game. You're always judged in this league by what you've done, here, and it's, I think when I studied a lot of great teams in the past and great coaches in the past, and what was the secret to sustained success, it always came back down to, there's a lot of things that coaches talk to me about, but it always came down to two things: staying in the moment, not looking too far ahead, like, hey, how are we going to do this thing again? There's a lot of work that goes into achieving the ultimate goal, and there's a lot of steps and there's a lot of process, and you got to go through those things. And then on the other end of the spectrum was like, hey, resting on your laurels. Well, we'll get back there because we done it. Nobody cares in this league, right? You have to put the work in every single day to help yourself continue to get better, to put yourself in position to win each week and win in the playoffs. So we just tried to stay where our feet were there. I know this, for these guys that I coach, I know for myself, it's like you play a game of pickup basketball. You don't and win the game. You don't take your shoes off and say, I'm content. I mean, we were here in this spot because you want to run it back and you want to play and compete again. That's part of the reason why you're here. I mean, that's any game. I don't if I'm playing Surrey with my kids and I win, I want to play again and go again. So I don't let them win that often, but sometimes I do. But yeah, I think that's just the competitive nature of, and why, there's a reason that the people are in this building because they have that hunger. But yeah.
Hey, can you talk about Dallas Goedert, what he's meant to the offense and the red zone success that you've had and how he's played into that?
Yeah, Dallas is obviously a great player. Tough, physical. I think that always comes to my mind when I think about Dallas is his physicality. And you look at the best tight ends in this league. Kittle, who we're playing, Dallas. They have that physicality. They have that anger when they run, and tough to bring down, and that the ability to have yards after catch. So be two great tight ends on the field this week, battling against each other. But yeah, Dallas has obviously been a key piece to the sustained success that we've had, and he's had a good run in the red zone this year. That frees up other people too in situations with that. So, but yeah, he's had a nice year.
All right, last one.
Can you talk about the impact that the development and play that Zach Vaughn has had on your team's results over the last 2 seasons? I think he's probably played as much as any player, and whether you've been surprised at how he continues to evolve.
Yeah, I think after last year, and maybe like I think I said last year is like he kind of burst onto the scene, right, to the outside world as we watched him. It's how he brought him to us, and we watched him. Like, yeah, this guy's really good special teams player, has great athletic ability. And then practice started happening in training camp and in OTAs, and you're like, man, this guy is physical. He's to the ball. He has a knack for the football, and so we don't get surprised by that because you see it in an everyday setting of the way he goes about his business and the plays that he made in practice and all those different things. But yeah, I would say just so happy for him with the way he has continued to develop his game, and I think he just keeps getting better. Hasn't played a ton inside. Obviously, he's played more than anybody these last 2 years, but but he just keeps getting better and better and better. And I think that's a testament to the athletic ability that he has and the traits that he has, but also the type of person he is and the work ethic that he has and the leader that he is. There's a reason these guys voted him a team captain. And he's just got this, people just want to be around him. And he's an energy giver. And that's huge when you're in the middle of that defense and when you have that C on your chest.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
All right, there you go. There's Nick Sirianni, who talked a little bit about Lane Johnson and something we talked about with Mosher earlier, how they can call things differently. And he actually mentioned, I don't want to talk about scheme, but there are some things we do differently with Lane. Now, he was limited today at practice, so we'll see if he gets back out in the practice field at all. Full participant this week. Also, he did talk about, we heard Vic Fangio, by the way, on Tuesday, talk about Nakobe Dean. He was limited today, too, but he did say, I do expect Dean to be back there. The other thing that I thought was interesting, that he mentioned was, we talked about earlier, was Patullo. I wouldn't say a ringing endorsement, but he did say there's always adjustments, and as you go through, I thought he's done a nice job of handling everything that's come his way. A nice job. Hey, honey, how's my hair look? That's nice. Not a ringing endorsement there. Ooh, it looks nice. What kind of job has Kevin Patullo done? Done a nice job. All right, that's about do it for us here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. Coming up tonight, it is Sixers basketball on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers and the Wizards. You can listen to that game right here. Also coming up this weekend, just to kind of set the stage. I can't believe we're almost we're at Thursday's show already. Tomorrow night and Friday night, Fiesta Bowl tomorrow will be on Rock 104.1. Peach Bowl on Friday night, Rock 104.1. Tonight, Sixers. Tomorrow, Flyers. Friday, Sixers. Saturday, doubleheader, NFL Wild Card. And then Sunday, Eagles, Niners, followed by Chargers, Pats. Okay? All right, we'll do it again tomorrow, everybody. Thanks for listening. This has been the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great night.